The meeting to order. I want to announce that some committee members, staff, and the public are attending remotely via Zoom as well as on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. When speaking, please speak directly into a microphone to ensure everyone listening is able to hear your comments and to ensure a clear record is made. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting the clerk's office by 5 p.m. the Thursday before this meeting. The public also will have an opportunity to provide brief comments either by telephone or via Zoom from the 5th floor conference room of the municipal office building. Public comments will be allowed during each agenda item. I would remind the public comment will be allowed during each agenda item, but comments should be limited to the item at hand and per the commission rules of procedure. Should not include any rude or derogatory remarks, reflections as to integrity, abusive comments, and statements as to motives and personalities. I will now call the meeting of the Economic Development Finance Standing Committee for July 29th, 2024 to order. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Wakes.
Present.
Lopez.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
Stites.
Here.
Townsend. Here. Burrows.
Here. Thank you, Clerk. Madam Clerk, are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
There are no revisions.
Thank you. Committee, our first order of business this evening is the approval of minutes from our July 10th, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion for approval?
Wakes approval, please. I vote to approve.
Townsend second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Wakes.
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. Committee, we have 3 action items this evening on the agenda. So item number 1 is a resolution. It's the second amendment to the 505 Central Development Agreement. It's the extension commencement date from September 1st, 2024 to March 1st, 2026, and a completion date from September 1st, 2026 to March 1st, 2028. I'll recognize Jeff Conway from our legal department for presentation and remarks.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Conway, UG Legal. I don't have much to preface this with other than it's a request by the developer to push back the commencement date and the completion dates both by about 18 months. And I think that they will have some remarks as to why that's necessary at this point. Also, outside counsel Todd LaSala with Stinson is here as well. And so I'll just turn it over to that team.
Okay. Todd, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. I really don't have anything to add. This one is very simple and straightforward. It's just the extension of those dates, but Mr. Moberly, the developer, is here to talk about why those extensions have been requested.
Thank you, Todd. Hi there, Mark Moberly, Sunflower Development Group. This is the project, 129 apartment units, new construction at 505 Central, directly across from Chicago's. I know Commissioner Stites and Commissioner Burrows, you were on the commission when we originally got this approved. It was no easy task. And then shortly after approval, the interest rates started to spike, and we quite frankly just lost our ability to raise capital on what is a tough project, which is the reason for the incentive request. We came back to you about a year ago and asked for another extension as we hadn't seen any interest rate relief. Capital markets weren't friendly to us then. In order to get under construction by the required date of September 1st, we would have had to start plans and start submitting for permit many months ago. So we're just not going to be able to make it. If we started today, best case, we're 6 to 9 months away. So the request is to push it out for another 18 months. That is the required construction start date. We will know well in advance of that if we have a financially viable project. I'm not going to 100% promise you we're not coming back, but the request for 18 months is so that we don't have to come back to you If the capital markets do what everyone thinks and interest rates start going down maybe once this year and a few times next year, our hope is our ability to secure private debt and equity is back to where we thought it was when we originally proposed this project. If for some reason we can't do it, then we probably need to abandon the project and walk away. Again, I'm not going to promise you I won't come back and ask for something else, but the thought here is we're going to ask you for 18 months. And in the next 9 to 12 months, we're going to know if we're going to start spending money on pre-development, start submitting for a permit, and be under construction by no later than the March 1st requested timeframe. We don't make money until we start, so we're absolutely motivated to get this project done. I would tell you that nothing has changed. Our plan, as originally presented and approved, is exactly the same: unit count, unit mix. We've not gone the next step to have some neighborhood engagement on facade. We're really, quite frankly, waiting to do that until we're ready to spend some money on design. So I did not prepare a presentation. It would be the exact same as you've seen several times before, but I would be happy to pull that up if we need to, or answer any questions.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Commissioner Lopez.
What's your APR you're looking at right now? I mean, if you was, I know interest rates are high, but what's your APR you had to be looking at right now?
Tell me what APR stands for.
For your interest rate?
Oh gosh, so if we closed a construction loan rate today, it's probably 7 to 7.5%. That's not the problem though. It's finding the private capital that can accompany that private debt. And it's also not the interest rate, it's the amount of private debt we can secure. When we originally presented, any developer would tell you we could get 70 to 75% of the project cost in debt. Today, that's probably more like 60 to 65%. That makes our equity requirement larger, and that's the harder thing to raise. Yep.
Committee, any other questions? Commissioner Burns?
This is going to be a wonderful project in the future. This is in my district. I make a motion to approve.
Townsend second.
Thank you. If we will hold the motion in a second, I do want to ensure that we have the public's input on this as this is a hearing. So are there any questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner Stites.
Stites District 7. I would also just say that, or just add to this, that this is consistent with other requests that we've got for extensions. You know, that's 12 to 18 months that are under these same sort of hurdles that a lot of developers are facing. So this is consistent.
And just for clarification, this is only the second amendment. So, I mean, we've had amendments that have double that. So I commend you all for sticking to it and giving us an 18-month timeline, because I do believe just what you stated, Mr. Moberly, that things can change, but we don't want to rush things. We want to make sure it's prudent enough for you to be able to meet your fiscal platform. So wonderful. Are there any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk if there are any comments received from the public.
No comments were received.
I'll ask the clerk if there are any hands raised by the public who wish to speak.
No hands are raised.
I will ask the clerk if there's anyone in attendance who wishes to speak to this issue. Let the record show no one came forward. Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Wakes,
Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moberly. Todd? Committee item number 2 is the Marshalltown Company Industrial Revenue Bonds. It has 2 elements. The first element is setting the public hearing on the proposed industrial revenue bonds for August 29th, 2024. The second element is approving a resolution of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds in the amount of $27 million for the property located at 9822 Leavenworth Road. This item will require 2 votes, 1 for each element. And if I'm correct, I believe this is the Scannell property. Yes, okay, thank you. I'll recognize Jeff Conway from our legal department for presentation and remarks.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Conway again. I won't have a lot of comments for this particular item. The development team is here to explain all about the project, but I would have to say that it's an old Iowa company with, it has to do with manufacture of metal tools. It's a sizable project out in the old Woodlands area. And it is 27 million, and that would be for the sales tax on construction materials and furniture and fixtures. Plus, there's a 10-year pilot on the abatement. Again, it's a graduated one, so it starts off fairly low and then builds up so that by the time you're shifting from the year 10 into 11, it's less of a shock. They're paying roughly 90%, and then they move right into year 11 and pick up from there. And I think with that, I'll just turn it over to the team. Kevin Wimpy with outside counsel, bond counsel Gilmore and Bell is here, plus the Marshalltown team. So I'll just turn it to them.
Right. Thanks, Jeff. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Kevin Wimpy with Gilmore and Bell, representing the Unified Government as bond counsel. This is a request for industrial revenue bonds for property tax abatement and sales tax exemption on construction materials, similar to other projects you regularly evaluate. So if it's okay with you, I'll let the development team introduce themselves, introduce the project. I think they have a brief slideshow prepared, and then I'll end with the usual procedural elements from a state law perspective that you're used to hearing from.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner and Commissioners. I would like to say I'm Cam Duff with Skinnell Properties. We are the current owner of what we call the 435 Logistics Park, the former Woodlands property. We are currently under construction there on the Marvin Windows project. I look at which it's probably been about a year now since we went through this process, but the walls on that facility are currently up, and it's humming right along. So we're very happy with the progress we've had there and the support that we've received from everybody at the UG. Regarding the Marshalltown project, Skinnell Properties will act as the developer for this project. Marshalltown will ultimately own the facility, similar to Marvin Windows. I'll let them speak to the overall plans for the facility, but it is a long-term commitment that they're making to the area and to the community. What we have planned in the first phase is about a 200,000 square foot building that'll be used for distribution of tool products, many tools that you all probably have in your garage that you've probably used before, seen before. And the tools are manufactured at other facilities and then shipped here for distribution. We have a presentation here prepared for you. I'll turn it over to Jack Murders.
Before you do that, could we get your name for the record, please?
Cam Duff, Skinnell Properties,
Thank you.
Director of Development.
Good afternoon. My name's Jack Murders. I'm Chief Operating Officer for Marshalltown. Can we advance the slide? Sorry about that. I have 2 or 3 slides that highlight who we are. We make, market, and sell a variety of tools for construction. Our primary focus is professional grade tools, but we also make various lines of do-it-yourself quality tools. Those tools, and we have about 9,000 different SKUs. We make around the vast majority of those SKUs we make in either Marshalltown, Iowa, or Fayetteville, Arkansas. The folks that know Marshalltown think of us as being the best. Our quality of our products, our quality of our customer service, just the overall customer experience is what we're known for. Our employees would think of us as stable employment, competitive, really good wages and benefit programs, and great working conditions. Safety is a top priority for us. We go the extra mile to have great break facilities and things of that nature. The communities that we're in, and primarily Marshalltown and Fayetteville, think of us as a great community partner. We're involved in the communities. As Cam mentioned, we like to own our facilities, not rent them, because we're moving to be in the community to be in the community. We're involved in various civic and charitable organizations in the communities that we're in. We're always willing to help in any way that we can. We've donated money and space for trails, parks. Marshalltown, Iowa's had a couple of major weather events in the past few years. And first a tornado and then a derecho. And we invested heavily and continue to invest heavily in that town to rebuild the city. One fun thing we did was last winter, we had the opportunity to build an ice rink for the community in Marshalltown, so that families of the local town could take their families there to ice skate during the holidays. And we jumped on that opportunity. We were happy to do it, and that's just who we are. Go to the next slide. We were started in 1890 in Marshalltown, Iowa. Hence the name Marshalltown. Two brothers, Jesse and Lester Williams, started the company. In 1902, they bought land on South 8th Avenue and started and built their shop, even though they had been renting property before that. We're still on that site today. 1981, we bought land in Fayetteville, Arkansas to build a factory and start an operation there. We're still on that site today. 1989, we bought a pre-existing facility also in Fayetteville, and we're on that site today. If I didn't mention it previously, we're privately held. Descendants of Jesse and Lester are major owners in the company. And we believe in that's how we do things. Those facilities has obviously been remodeled, renovated, and expanded over the years, but we stay in those sites and in those communities. You want to go to the next slide? Marshalltown, another thing we're known for is being an American manufacturer. And that's a hard job these days. And we're committed to doing it and doing it well now into the future. A lot of our competitors haven't been so fortunate, and we're so passionate about continuing to be in the USA. We've been on an acquisition path. And so you can see over the last 20 years, the companies that we've acquired, all of those except for the last one, Vaughn and Dasco Pro, we incorporated those operations and in some cases people into our facilities in Fayetteville and Marshalltown. Vaughn and Dasco is a more complex, bigger acquisition. And so we've decided that we're going to invest in those facilities in Bushnell, Illinois, and in Walnut Ridge, Arkansas, and continue to manufacture in those communities. It's going to take some time to get those facilities up to what we would consider a Marshalltown standard, but we're making good progress. As you can tell from that, we're out of space. We're almost out of land in Fayetteville and Marshalltown. We've determined it's time for a new site. We started with a broad-based search. We came to the conclusion that we're Midwestern people and we need to be in the Midwest. We looked at Marshalltown, Iowa, Fayetteville, Arkansas. It's an I-35, I-49 corridor, and we picked a spot right in the middle. And that's why we're here. We looked at a variety of properties, talked to a variety of developers, and ultimately we decided on that we like Wyandotte County, Scanell Properties, Camduff, and we're hoping to build a facility in this area at 435 Logistics Park.
Thank you, Mr. Murder. Questions, committee? Commissioner Lopez.
Is your tools that you say you manufacture in Arkansas and they're distributed here, are these tools, are they American-made tools that you're building?
The tools that we build in Marshalltown, Iowa and Fayetteville, Arkansas are very much American. We have large retail customers such as Home Depot, Lowe's, and others, where we have a mix of made in USA and imported products. We will have, this facility will be used to what we do today is we rail products from the West Coast to Kansas City and truck those to Fayetteville. We will store those here and distribute those to Fayetteville and Marshalltown or directly to customers as needed.
And then this facility at this location, how many jobs will that bring?
I hope to start in the 40 to 50 range.
And then what would be like an average annual income?
Starting wages will be likely around $22 an hour. And then some of the more skilled jobs could be up $30, $35, $40 an hour.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, committee? Mr. Wakes.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your presentation. I'm very impressed with your company and the history of it. Just out of curiosity, being a person of color, how racially diverse is your company?
We don't keep those statistics, but we are very racially diverse. And probably more so in Fayetteville than in Marshalltown because of the demographic of the communities. Hispanic populations in both facilities are a significant part of our workforce.
And female participation in your?
Oh, gosh, it would be, it's roughly 50-50. It's in that ballpark.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? I please, Commissioner Lopez brought up the employers because I was looking at the sheet and one page said no employees transferring from Iowa and no employees here. Then I get to another page and it says 100 employees and you just responded with 40 to 50. So I was kind of ambivalent on whether I was going to ask the question because I know when you fill out these forms, it's usually before things completely get settled. So just kind of curious.
Absolutely. We anticipate that the vast majority of employees will come from this area already. I would hope that we would have enough to transfer culture from our other facilities, but I'm expecting almost all to be from the Kansas City, Kansas region. The number of I've been asked that so many times, and I've been with Marshalltown almost 40 years. So I know the company And I know what we're doing, I know what we're going to do, but coming up with a specific number is really difficult to do. But I think in time, the 100 number, I mean, like I said, we intend to be here for 50, 100, 150 years. That's our plan.
Well, thank you. And I do appreciate and respect the comment that it would be Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas employees. I would hope that you would give them strong first consideration. We sure could use more employment on high-end wages in Wyandotte County. And this is taxpayer money that is assisting in your development.
Yes, Cam Duff with Scannell Properties. I'd add Commissioner Burrows that me as the developer and owner of this project only got certain visibility of as to the process, the selection process that they went through, that Marshalltown and Jack and his team went through. But I can tell you that it was a stringent process, and a lot of it was based upon labor, at least from the questions that I was consistently answering, and Greg Kendall and his team were consistently answering. So I think that's a big part of the reason that this decision was made.
Good. Commissioner Lopez, thank you, Mr. Duff.
Yeah, just a real quick question too. This is, we are pretty much a blue collar town, and we're a lot of hard workers. I have a lot of friends that are in this kind of work anyway, but would they be able to buy tools from this area, or is it just for wholesale to like to the major stores?
Jack Murders with Marshalltown. That's a great question. We haven't been in a market the size of this one before. So typically we don't sell a lot of our facilities, but it'd be something we would obviously consider.
I think you would do great, because I know if you open your doors tomorrow, I'd send a lot of guys your way.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I do have a question for council. Council, do we know that the pilot that has been proposed in this contract, is this the new pilot that was established by the new administrator?
The basic idea of a graduated pilot, yes, this is one of those. It's not flat all the way across.
Okay.
And I think check with Kevin, but is it roughing out to about 50% abatement? Is that right?
That's correct.
Great, wonderful. I think the public will be pleased with that. And I do see the LBE, MBE, WBE is in here, and a penalty phase if it's not met.
Yes, Commissioner. So the penalty, just to put a number to it, is a 5% penalty. So in this graduated scale, for instance, if the base pilot was a 70% abatement, it would go to 65 in that scenario if they'd failed to meet those targets.
Got it. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk if there were any comments received from the public. Oh,
No comments received.
No.
Did somebody have a question?
No.
Oh, we're not there yet. I'm sorry. We'll get there. I'll ask the clerk if there's any comments received from the public.
No comments.
Thank you. I'll ask, is there any hands raised from the public who wish to speak?
No hands are raised.
Okay. Yeah. Now then, I'll ask, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak? Yeah, you will be given up to 3 minutes to make your comments. Please come to the podium and state your name and city of residence for the record. Thank you for your patience. Turn your microphone on. There we go.
Hi, I'm Monica Breedy. I'm the Vice President of Workforce Solutions and Business and Workforce Solutions with Wyandotte Economic Development Council. Good evening, and thanks for having us here tonight. I'm here in support of the resolution for the 27 million industrial revenue bonds for Marshalltown, along with the performance agreement that's been put forth. I'm here on behalf of Greg Kendall, who is the President of Wyandotte Economic Development Council. He couldn't be here tonight, but has been working with the teams of Marshalltown, Scannell, Kansas City Area Development Council, and internal teams with the unified government. We've been working with the team of Marshalltown since January to identify a location for their family-owned company to expand operations. And today we're excited to be here as they come forward to build a nearly 208,000 square foot facility in the 435 Logistics Park Marshalltown has a long history of providing quality hardware, as he just stated, and tools and companies like Ace Hardware, Lowe's, Home Depot. The 20 acres, the first phase, which is 20 acres, where the building will sit presently, generates a little more than $14,000 in property tax at today's rate. And it'll end up being over $140,000 over the next 10 years, if it were to remain as it is. The proposal in front of you generates more than $2.6 million in property taxes over the next 10 years with the incentives, with the graduated abatement. And once fully on the tax rolls, will create $625,000 in total annual taxes. As a 134-year-old family-owned company, they understand the community being engaged with the Piper School District, KCK Community College, and ensure that residents are best positioned for the 40, 50 to 100 jobs that are being created. And we know that they are already identifying Wyandotte County contractors to help construct the facility further and providing value to our company. Their average starting wages of $22 an hour is very consistent with what the median wage is here in Wyandotte County, which is $22.93 an hour. And we're already partnering with them to make sure that we are pushing our Wyandotte County residents into our Wyandotte County companies. So
You
we
have
look
1
forward.
minute remaining.
We look forward to continuing to work with Marshalltown with the goal of them expanding their operations at the site and in the future continuing to grow. And we want to express our appreciation to them and to everyone who has been a part of this process for choosing Kansas City, Kansas for their investment. This is a great company and we ask for your full support in this resolution.
Thank you, Monica, and thanks for your support. Committee, if there's no other questions, I did want to remind you that this is a two-part vote on this item. We need to take the motion for approving a public hearing for August 29th, 2024. That will be the first motion. And second, should that come forward. And then the second one would be the industrial revenue bonds of 27 million. So if there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion on setting the date of the hearing.
So move.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second for the date of the hearing being August 29th, 2024. I'd ask clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Wakes.
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. The second part of our resolution this evening is the approval of the $27 million IRBs. I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Wakes.
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. Thank you, Mr. Duff, Mr. Murders. Mr. Wimpy, thank you. Are you sticking around for the next one? I figured so. Okay. We'll let our transition occur. Welcome back to the podium, Todd LaSala. Okay, our item number 3, our last item for this evening, is amending the deadlines related to the issuance of IRBs for the American Royal project. This item has been requested to be fast-tracked to our August 1st commission meeting this Thursday. So if there is a motion, should a motion come forward, it should include the language of fast tracking. I'll recognize Jeff Conway from our legal department for a presentation and remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Conway, UG Legal. This particular item, I know there's sheets of paper, but it boils down to an extension of the, basically the IRB window. At one point, it was set for March 31st. We had a resolution that kicked that out to July 31st, which, as you know, is quickly approaching. So we'll need to extend that again. And it's proposed to be December 31st, 2024. And so that's really all it does. The discussion with American Royal continues. Negotiations are ongoing. There's some issues that we're committed to work through with them, and I believe they are too. This simply keeps the option to issue the IRBs available until December 31st with that extension. And so we've got Kevin Wimpy with Gilmore and Bell, Todd LaSala with Stinson, outside counsel for the UG, and Kevin Lee with Polsinelli representing American Royal. And that's about all that I have to say about the project.
Hi, that's excellent. This is Todd LaSala. I would just offer just a few additional words of context. These IRBs are purely about the sales tax on construction materials. This is not IRB abatement for the real estate tax. You may recall that when we were before this committee in August of last year, the American Royal was very excited to get out and start construction. And they wanted to begin construction right away. So they really wanted the IRBs for purposes of getting the sales tax on construction materials and getting a project exemption certificate so they were not paying those as they were under construction. And the part of that was slightly unusual was we didn't really have the new deal. As the project had evolved and grown, we didn't really have the deal in the development agreement. We hadn't a project plan and we needed to do all of that. So the deadlines that Jeff's talking about are really deadlines that this committee imposed on the development team and your staff about getting a new development agreement in place and a new project plan in place, originally by March 31st. As Jeff mentioned, that deadline was extended to now July 31st. And I think what Jeff said is right. We have been in very active negotiations with the Royal really since April. And there is a lot of back and forth. There was a meeting on Friday about some of the major deal points. There's another meeting scheduled for Wednesday. We are actively after this, but we are not there yet. So other procedural items related to this have not come back to you because we are at this point really just knee deep in trying to make the deal. So I would probably stop there, see if Mr. Lee has anything he'd like to add, but I just think contextually, that's sort of where we are and why.
Mr. Lee, you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, Kevin Lee with the Polsinelli Law Firm, appearing on behalf of the American Royal Association. I think I would just echo what Jeff and Todd said. That's exactly right. We're in active negotiations and making good headway there. It's obviously a very important project, and so both parties are doing their diligence to make sure that we're crossing T's and dotting I's in the development agreement. So this is just an interim date, as Todd said, that we set to help make sure that we're checking in with you all and expect to be back before you very soon. Development agreement terms.
Okay. Any questions or comments, committee? I have one at this time. The agreement is still being worked on, the development agreement, but all this does is extend the IRB request of $250 million to December 31st of 2024. And this is the second amendment. This wouldn't be the first amendment. This would be the second amendment, correct? Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was a second amendment. That's what I had in my notes that I'm making myself, but I didn't see it in the notes submitted. So the next question I would have is, it's really not so much a question as it is a commitment on behalf of the members of this committee and the unified government. These issues that come before us of this magnitude are a tremendous burden to us to try to keep caught up on, especially when they're either blue sheeted or fast tracked. It's very difficult for us to work through all of that on a time constraint because we have to continue to educate our fellow members as best we can in an open and transparent manner. But I would hope that in light of the fact that staff has been so busy and trying to meet the timeline, that I know our legal department has been pushed hard to come together on this. And I would hope that there would be consideration to any monies or any commitment to ensure that we are kept whole, that we don't fall behind during these contract negotiations. I think it's prudent for us to request as much as we possibly can to ensure that if we're going to be involved in the process, if legal is going to be involved in the process, that everybody is up to date with fees and funds and that we're made whole. I know this project's been out here now 5 years that I can think of. And so I do know when trying to get information, I know how busy legal staff has been, and to try to get them to break away from the issue here to get back to us to educate the chair so that we can communicate clearly and transparently has been a little bit of a challenge. So I would hope that you would take that into consideration.
Commissioner, your point is well taken. These things do require a lot of time, energy, and money for outside counsel and studies and so forth. As is the case with most of your economic development projects, funding agreement, the developer required to pay for that time. This is their project, their request for public incentives, and so they are required pursuant to a funding agreement to really pay your costs associated with this. And in fact, we have reached out very recently to this development team and said that we're looking for another funding payment related to this project to make sure that we're
Wonderful. And this is not something I would just tell the American Royal. These projects are coming in. I don't want to say quickly, but they're of great magnitude and takes a tremendous amount of time and energy from our staff here. And we're in the budget process, and it's important to us to ensure that we are meeting our financial responsibilities when it comes to these contracts. So I appreciate that. Thank you for listening. Committee, any other questions, comments? Seeing none, I think we can do this in one vote if we put the fast track language in it. Thank you. I'll ask the clerk if there were any questions from the public.
No comments were received.
Thank you. I'll ask if clerk if there are any hands raised by the public who wish to speak to this item.
No hands are raised.
Thank you. I will ask the clerk if there is anyone here this evening who would like to make a comment or speak to this item in attendance. Let the record show no one stepped forward. Thank you. Okay, committee, I would entertain a motion for approval of extending the time frame from July 31st, 2004 to December 31st, 2024 for $250 million in IRBs to keep them in the development discussion.
Townsend second.
Fast track. That include the fast track?
Yes, it does. I would assume it would include the fast track, as we stated.
Okay.
Mr. Stites, is that your motion? Thank you. Second, is that your agreement? Fast track? Thank you. Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Please call roll.
Roll call. Wait.
Aye.
Lopez.
No.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. Thank you. Appreciate you all being here. Thanks for continuing to keep us abreast of this project. Committee, that brings us to the end of our agenda. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Townsend second.
We have a motion and a second for adjournment. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Wakes.
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion
Thank you. That concludes our meeting this evening. Stay tuned for the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee, which will meet in probably a few minutes as soon as we clear the room.
Staff and the public are attending remotely via Zoom as well as on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. When speaking, please speak directly into a microphone to ensure everyone listening is able to hear your comments and to ensure a clear record is made. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time that you speak so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by mail prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting the clerk's office by 5 p.m. the Thursday before the meeting. The public will also have an opportunity to provide brief comments either by telephone or via Zoom from the 5th floor conference room of the municipal office building. Public comments will be allowed during each agenda item. Comments should be limited to the item at hand and per the commission rules of procedure. They should not include any rude or derogatory remarks, reflections as to integrity, abusive comments, and statements as to motives and personalities. All right. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Before I do that, I want to bring everyone's attention to this particular slide. Thank you, clerk, for catching this. So in conversation with our local or regional HUD, Housing and Urban Development, they are doing this Emerging Developer Summit that is happening in September at MCC Penn Valley in Missouri. As you all can see, there's a lot of folks that do metro-wide work that are included there. I thought since we're having a lot of conversation about development, it would be good to offer that particular opportunity, which is free. So if you all know anyone that is interested in development, interested in construction, interested in building housing, commercial, what have you, there is a free opportunity to get that resource and education. Thank you. Okay, I will now call the meeting of the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee for July 29th, 2024 to order. Clerk, can we have the roll?
Roll call. Hill.
Here.
Ramirez, we have an absent memo. Townsend.
Here.
Bynum. Here. Davis.
Here. Thank you so much. Glad that we have a quorum. First order of business is to approve minutes from our July 10th, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion or any questions?
I now move to approve. Townsend second.
Clerk, can we get the roll?
Roll call. Hill.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Bynum. Aye. Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, the minutes have been approved. Okay, next up are our land bank applications. I will turn it over to you, Mr. Knapp, to walk us through what we have.
Thank you, Commissioner. So the A section, the single family homes, I anticipate it to be smooth sailing for us. And then the B section is the multifamily, and I have items for each. I have discussion points for each item, and then we finish up with the commercial. So our first item is A1. It's at 1211 Barnett Avenue. This applicant has already built a home on the land bank lot and coming back for more. The next one is A2 at 6737 Speaker Road. This applicant is also built on a land bank lot, and they're coming back to build more again, a single family home. The next one has also built a home before. It's at 722 North 62nd Place to build another single family home. A4 is the first one that hasn't built a home with us yet. They want to build this home to live in. And I've received no staff comments or neighborhood group comments against this item. Next one is A5. This one is a little bit different. It's at 1225 North 62nd Street. It's a little bigger parcel. The applicant wants to build a home on this lot. But this lot is about 3 acres in size, but this lot is also mostly in a floodplain. So staff was very excited, well, it's a very good use of the land to have a garden system and build a house where the floodplain's not. So staff was very, very supportive of this application. Commissioner, that sums up our 8 items.
Awesome. Before we get to public comment, colleagues, any preliminary comments or questions? Is there anything from Dr. Hill online?
I just want, did he say that this particular property, 1225, was in a flood zone?
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay, and if it's in a flood zone, what were the petitioners concerned that there could be some possible damage?
Yes, not all of this parcel is in the floodplain. So they're going to build their home outside of the floodplain and then use the floodplain areas for a farm/garden operation.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Knapp, what portion of this is not in the floodplain? Is it 6151? Is it, I'm assuming it's that because it's closer to 62nd.
If you can see where my mouse is, it's this piece right here that's not inside the floodplain. When I had my staff meeting, they said this is a special kind of floodplain where it'll flood like every 10 years, they said. So this is kind of a bad floodplain area for us.
Okay, but it's kind of closer.
But
okay.
The home would be built outside the floodplain.
Gotcha. Okay. Other question, colleagues? Okay. All right. For these particular items only, A1 through A5, I'll ask the clerk if there are any hands raised by the public who wish to speak. Do we have any? Let's start online.
There are no hands raised.
Okay. Have any been submitted for any of these applications?
No comments received.
Okay. For folks in the gallery here, does anyone want to provide public comment for items A1 through A5? All right, I'll go ahead and close the public comment portion. Colleagues, any other questions? Is there a motion?
Townsend moved to approve items A1 through A5.
Bynum, second.
Thank you. Clerk, can we get the roll?
Roll call. Hill,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, let's start with the Bs, Mr. Knapp.
All right, so every one of the Bs I have comments for. B1 is at 349 Richmond Avenue. There's 2 lots here. They want to build a home, a 2-bedroom home with a accessory dwelling unit built above a garage behind it. So they have their home that they're going to live in the front, and they have a garage with the living unit above in the back, so they can rent it out to help pay off their mortgage and things like that. So the comments I received on this project were opposition from the Land Bank Advisory Board because the developer did not attend a neighborhood meeting. The registered neighborhood group is Caring Neighborhood. So my answer to that is I send notice out. I sent notice this time, July 15th. That is 2 weeks ago, almost. I received an email on Friday afternoon requesting the contact information for the developer for the neighborhood meeting that would happen on Saturday. Since I was out of the office on Friday afternoon, I couldn't forward the contact information to him, so the developer was not at the meeting. I did send an email to the neighborhood group asking them when their next neighborhood meeting was. I did check the Livable Neighborhoods website, and I believe it's every 4th Saturday. So that puts their next meeting on August 24th. Our next full commission meeting is August 29th. So that meeting would happen before our next full commission meeting, and I can come give an update of what happened at that neighborhood meeting, if that's what you would like.
Okay, let's stay there on B1 because you said you have comments. We'll just focus on B1 for now. Any initial comments, colleagues, regarding B1? Yes, Commissioner Townsend?
Thank you, Townsend District 1. Mr. Knapp, could you go back to the dates that you mentioned? I kind of got lost on these dates and requests to attend a meeting. And I want to make sure, it's my understanding there is absolutely no requirement to attend a neighborhood meeting of these builders. It would be a good thing to do to check in with the neighborhoods in which you're building. Sometimes there's an active neighborhood group and sometimes there's not. But I want to be clear, I believe that there is no requirement in our land bank policy for a tentative builder who's merely seeking an option agreement to attend. And I think we're I'm fearful we may be moving by practice into a requirement that is not really a requirement. So if you could speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
It is not a requirement that they speak to the neighborhood group, but I do send this email with this link to this application to the neighborhood group. This one I sent on July 15th, so that's almost two weeks ago. I sent it so they can review it, and I have this little survey thing at the bottom here where they could answer a survey question on if they approve it or don't, and give me comments so I could share here. So I have made a lot of I have tried to get their public comments, get their comments into this meeting.
And you sent this to the neighborhood group on the 15th. When would you expect comments back from the neighborhood group? Generally speaking, how much time do you send notice to the neighborhood groups on any of these applications? And within what amount of time are you expecting them back before our meetings?
So it's usually 2 weeks that they have before this meeting to make comments on these projects. Some neighborhood groups give it to me instantly. As soon as I send them the email, I get comments back. There is a trend that I get a lot of comments like this morning of this meeting, and then I have to scramble to answer those questions this afternoon. Just like what happened today.
Okay. So on average, you're sending these notices out at least 2 weeks ahead of the meeting. I thought they were supposed to get it a little bit sooner, they being the neighborhood groups, the MBRs. How much sooner ahead of the meeting are they supposed to be getting these notices?
2 to 3 weeks. This month we had 2 standing committee meetings in this month.
Right.
So I only had 3 weeks instead of the usual 4. So it was kind of sped up just a little bit.
This was grueling because we did meet, what was that, July the 8th?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Which is not usual. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that clarified some things for me. Thank you.
Other questions, colleagues, on B1 before we go to public comment? Okay, clerk, I will ask, has anyone sent in any public comment for this application for B1?
No comments were received.
Are there any hands raised online to speak to this application?
No hands are raised.
Okay, I'll turn to the gallery. Is there anybody here in attendance that would like to speak to this application? All right, I'll go ahead and close the public comment. Oh, I'm so sorry. We'll keep the public comment open. I'm sorry, ma'am. Please come to the mic. Comments should be limited to the item at hand per the commission rules of procedure. Should not include any rude or derogatory remarks, reflections as to integrity, abusive comments and statements as to motives and personalities. You'll be given up to 3 minutes to make your comments. Please state your name and city of residence for the record. Oh, can you make sure it should be a green light when you press it?
Vanessa Robinson. Okay, it's on now.
Awesome. You can pull the mic down just a little bit.
Kansas. I
There
am
you
the
go.
president of Caring Neighborhood. I wanted to comment on Judd, with the land bank, getting me the information that I need, in a proper time. There's not always, and I have been communicating with him. He was supposed to come to a couple of meetings, supposed to getting back with me, and he didn't. But it's okay. We are still, able to communicate and be able to, because nothing has moved forward anyway. So we'll just catch up with each other and get on track where we need to be. Also, a lot of the developers, I'm not for sure, I was listening to you, Ms. Townsend, on the meetings that they are not prompt to have to come to those meetings. I wasn't aware either or, but I was aware that, told that anytime there's any kind of, someone is getting ready to build in the neighborhood or any kind of, land banks, land being bought in the area that I am supposed to be notified. So I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know where we stand with that, with you guys. So I'd like to address that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Was there anything else you want to say? I do want to give you your full time.
No, I'm done. I just want some answers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Is there anybody else in the gallery that would like to speak to this item B1? Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public comment for the B1 application. As it's my understanding, so there's the planning and zoning entitlement process, which depending upon if you live within that radius, you would be notified of any sort of request for an entitlement or a change of zone or what have you. And then for the land bank, it's kind of been a more informal courtesy, is that the best way to say it, where through the advisory board, which is Livable Neighborhoods and our NBRs, we have really tasked them and worked with them to speak to other neighborhood folks just to make them aware. But legal, I do want to ask, there is, even in the proposed policy, there is no mandate for any particular notification. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, awesome. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you. And even though there is no mandate, and I wanted to make sure we got that clear, we are encouraging communication between those who want to build and the neighborhood groups. There is no requirement they come, but we have told those who come, asking to check and see if there is an active neighborhood group where they want to build. It would just be a good practice and a matter of common courtesy. But that's a two-way street. So if the organizations get word, Mr. Judd, is there any way that they can contact the person seeking the option agreements? Is there an email or address that is provided to the NBRs and the neighborhood groups so that they could, if they chose to, contact the builder?
I currently do not send the contact information for the developer to the neighborhood groups.
Okay.
I was thinking about it today, and I probably could start doing that. It's another step, but
yeah,
I think I could do that.
Okay. Yeah, it would be great if it was a two-way kind of street, and don't want to give out any personal information, but if you can get from them a way that neighborhood groups could be contacted so that you have a two-way path of communication, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hill.
Thank you. Commissioner Hill, District 4. I just wanted to confirm what Commissioner Townsend just mentioned. I think it needs to be a two-way street. Otherwise, it is, in my opinion, a little bit unfair for a developer to come in and there be no contact at all between them and the neighborhood group. It would be nice to have some kind of communication, even if it's virtual, where or on the telephone or something, where the neighborhood group and the developer could actually, or the builder, could actually communicate and just do some basic introductions even. So I understand the concerns of the neighborhood. And like Commissioner Townsend said, it doesn't, you don't have to give out really any personal information necessarily, but it would be good to have that some type of communication. So thank you as staff for being willing to look into that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other questions regarding this application for B1? And Mr. Knapp, I do want to get something made clear. So our next full commission meeting that has us meeting as the Land Bank Board of Trustees is August 29th. By that time, will this neighborhood have met on their regular calendar?
According to the Livable Neighborhoods website, they should meet the fourth Saturday of the month, and that should be August 24th.
Okay, so that would be before the August 29th.
Yes.
Meaning, because again, this committee, all we do is we make a recommendation. We do not make final decisions. That comes Thursday nights where it's the entire Board of Trustees, which is the mayor and the 10 commissioners. And so theoretically, we could advance this forward. The neighborhood group meeting would be August 24th. There would be that opportunity, and barring any concerns, we would then have the opportunity to adopt. That could be a pathway forward, colleagues, for us to kind of keep our eye on. And we've done that before to both be mindful of neighborhoods who want to be very active, who we encourage, right? But at the same time, wanting to dispose of our land bank applications. So that's an idea that I'm throwing out there because we've done it before and have been able to make things go smoothly. With that, are there any comments or is there a motion? Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
Both. One more thing. Mr. Knapp, do you engage in any way with the potential option applicants and suggest to them that if there's a neighborhood group there that they contact it?
I do suggest that they contact them.
Okay. I thought that was what had been going on for several years. We talked about that. So thank you. You answered that question. So move to approve the applications under B1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Clerk, can we get the roll?
Roll call. Hill,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Clerk. B2, Mr. Knapp.
Right. B2 is at 1915 North 10th Street. This is the south east corner of 10th and Parallel. The land bank and the UG owns, it's like 1.8 acres there on that corner. Mosaic Construction wants to build it. They're already building one home in Peregrine Falcon right now. They're wanting to build 6 4-unit apartment buildings there. I do have to say the UG owns 5 of these parcels here, and that is item 2 for tonight in the property transfers, to transfer those UG properties into UG ownership. But the Land Bank Advisory Board did have an opposition comment to this. They said they support the neighborhood group's decision, and the neighborhood group is supporting this build. Douglas Sumner is supporting, but the Land Bank Advisory Board said this is close to the Northeast Heritage Trail Plan, and there is a part in that plan where they want to return the Jersey Creek into a natural creek. And there was a question of, will this property affect that, returning Jersey Creek back to like a natural state? I reviewed this with planning, and they told me that since it's far away from Jersey Creek, so it's really not an issue. That was that. There was also another question, has the applicant arranged for a phase 1 and phase 2 of a brownfield? We've definitely made aware the applicant that they'll definitely need to do a brownfield in this area. So that's a yes to that one. And then that sums up my items here.
Okay.
B2.
All right, committee, any preliminary questions regarding B2, which is 1915 North 10th Street? Any questions we have? Yes, Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair Townsend. And I don't have a question really about 2I through 2A. This is all one project, is it not?
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay. So my thought in asking that question was that we just take it all as one vote, up or down.
Which items? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
We're talking about B2.
Yes.
Yeah, and maybe I was looking at the little I, but the vote would be on all of those units, all of those lots.
Yes, yeah, so that is one, and they're wanting to build, was it 24 units? All of this that we're looking on the screen is one application.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Colleagues, any other questions regarding this? Okay, I'll go ahead and open the public comment. Clerk, do we have any public comment for this particular item?
There were no comments received, but we do have James Malloy from Urban Planning and Design.
Yes, does he have his hand up? Okay, yes, Mr. Malloy, help us out here.
Sorry about that, James Malloy, Planning and Urban Design. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of echo Judd's comments about the Northeast Heritage Trail. As you know, the creek runs to the south there, south of that industrial property. Part of the intention of, and particularly this portion of that trail plan was to eventually daylight and again, return Jersey Creek to a natural state. I know there had been comments in the past if this would affect it, if this particular intersection or any project here would affect that. It's our belief it wouldn't. If anything, the industrial property between this property and the creek would be have much more of an impact, but just wanted to add that on. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other folks online wanting to speak to this?
No other hands are raised.
Okay, I'll turn to the gallery for the folks that are here. Does anyone want to speak to this particular item for B2? Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public comment portion for B2. Committee, if we have a motion, or are there any comments regarding this application?
I move approval.
Townsend second.
Awesome. Like, there's only 3 of us. Okay. Claire, can we get the roll?
Roll call. Hill,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. B3, Mr. Knapp.
Right, B3 is at 1741 Greeley Avenue. They're requesting 7 lots to build 7 duplexes on. But the developer is actually requesting to shift out some of these lots. These 2 right here, 1742 and 1738, are on like a hillside, and they could be unbuildable or they'll be difficult to build on. They are requesting to shift over here for these other land bank lots over here that are on flatter ground at 1706 and 1702. I've never done this before, but hopefully legal will let me do this. Okay. The Land Bank Advisory Board had some opposition to this. The OCP Neighborhood Group and Groundworks we're trying to schedule a meeting for this week with the developer. Again, this is the same situation that we had in B1 where the meeting hasn't taken place, but is supposed to take place before our next full commission meeting. The neighborhood comments are the same from OCP. They're just waiting for a neighborhood meeting. I do have to say a neighborhood meeting already did take place on May 11th with this group with OCP, but they want another. And the applicant is here tonight, so he can answer.
Okay. We will get there. Committee, any questions regarding this particular application? And the applicant is here, so if there are questions for the applicant. Yeah, can we have the applicant come forward for B3? Yeah.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Oh, you make sure it's on, it should be green. Okay, great. You just have a low voice like me. That's all right. Well, you might
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
There you go. There you go. Okay. So I'll kind of ask a question first. So a May 11th meeting did take place. There's a comment here about secrets or something like that. Can you just tell us what happened at the neighborhood meeting?
I don't know what that comment is either. I read that in the proposal. So what happened at the meeting, we just did an introduction of what was needed in the community. We got feedback from the community. I introduced myself as a developer and that I wanted to help build up the community.
Can you speak louder into that mic? There you go. Yeah. Yes, and your name for the record.
Steve Hooks.
Yes, as you were saying about the May 11th meeting.
A May 11th meeting when pretty much I just introduced myself, told them about doing some development in the community, asked them for a lot of input as far as what they needed and some of the things that they were concerned about, and told them about my experience and my involvement with the community. And so it kind of went pretty well. I got a lot of feedback from a lot of people in the community. I'm still dealing with them today as far as community leaders and stuff in that area. So as far as the secret, I have no idea what that statement means.
Okay, cool. All right. Committee members, any questions for the applicant since he's here? Yes, Commissioner Bynum.
Mr. Hooks, Melissa Bynum at Large, District 1. Thanks for being here in person tonight. I just want to clarify, 7 buildings totaling 14 units, is that right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, and I forgot my second question. I'll come back if I remember it.
Whenever you remember, just
Thank you.
just tap me on the shoulder. Any other questions, colleagues? Yes, Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. Hooks. While Commissioner is recollecting, maybe you can make it a little bit more clear. It says 14 units. Can you talk a little bit about the nature of those units that you intend to
Those are
build on
7
the lot?
duplexes with a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 1-car garage. And that depends on the lot, if it's willing to have a garage. If not, then we're doing a carport out back. So pretty much 2-story, modern design, energy efficient, a solar panel ready, coded. So.
Okay. And did you share that specific kind of information with the neighborhood group when you met with them? And was that May?
May 11th. I did
Okay.
about additional projects that we're going to be doing, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Committee, any other questions for the applicant?
I did remember another question. For rent or for sale?
For sale.
Okay, thank you. So I might own half the duplex, or I might own the whole thing and maybe rent half.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any notion This is not pertaining to your actual options. It's just out of curiosity on my part. Do you have any notion today what a sale price for one unit might be these days?
Anywhere from 254 to 276.
Okay, thanks.
All right. If there are no other questions, thank you so much. Hold tight, but we are going to go to the public comment so you can rest your legs in the meantime. Clerk, I will go ahead and open up the public comment for B3, which is 1741 Greeley Avenue. Were there any comments received for this application?
No comments were received.
Are there any hands raised online for this particular application?
No hands are raised.
Okay, we'll turn to the gallery. Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak to this particular application? All right, let the record show no one.
Sorry, we do have a hand raised now. It is
Okay.
with the OCP president.
Okay. Yes, please, you have 3 minutes and please state your name and city of residence. Hello?
Sir, if you can please state your name and residency, please. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello.
We hear you.
Good evening. Can you guys?
Oh, I think I think she went mute. We just heard you. If you can unmute.
Okay, I am unmuted.
Yes, now we can hear you. Yes, please state your name, city of residence, and then you have 3 minutes for your comment.
Thank you. Candy Leonard Caldwell, President for Organization for Community Preservation. I wish not to give my home address because I do work in the public. I was in attendance at that meeting at the Quindera Center on May 11th. It was not per se an Organization for Community Preservation meeting. Found out about the meeting through a flyer from Livable Neighborhoods. And at that time, there was no mention of the property or the 1741 Greeley at that meeting. So Mr. Hooks has not met with OCP. We would like to meet with him along with groundwork. And I would like to thank Commissioner Townsend and Commissioner Hill for recommending that developers and builders reach out to neighborhood organizations. We should have a voice in what goes on within our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other folks online wanting to speak to B3?
There are no other hands raised.
Thank you. I'll turn to the gallery, the folks that are here in person. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this particular application? Okay, let the record show no one has approached the microphone. I will close the public hearing portion for this application. Committee, any questions or other comments regarding this application? Yes, Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you. I want to thank President Leonard Caldwell for calling in. I was under the impression that Mr. Hooks, you had met with OCP, which is that neighborhood group. Did you have any, could he?
Yes, please. Yeah, the applicant, please do. And make sure your mic is on and you speak loud.
And I don't want to go back on what I said earlier because we do not have a requirement per se, but it is, and I always encourage anyone, whether it's a multi-builder or someone building on a smaller scale, if there is an active neighborhood group, to meet with that neighborhood group, not necessarily the same thing as the mass neighborhood meeting that you had. So could you just speak to that?
Sure. On May 11th, actually, we're introducing the whole project of different projects to the Northeast area. At that time, we did not know that Greeley would be the lots that we will be initiating our first phase. So that's after the fact of May 11th. So once the lots have been allocated or in the process of those allocated, then we chose that the best use for those lots would be in duplexes. So I have not, and I'm looking forward to meeting the community leaders there about the project.
Okay, well, I just my recommendation that you actually meet with the local neighborhood group there. And if you don't know how to get in touch with her, we can make sure that you have a way to communicate with her. And as Chairman has already mentioned, we could move this along, which is what I would proposing, but there would be another bite at the apple. So just word to the wise between now and what would be the next meeting if this moved forward?
For full commission,
Commission,
August 29th.
okay, so,
We reached out to her, so we have been communicating by email. So hopefully this week we will meet with that group.
that's encouraging to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Other questions? Is there a motion to take action? This is an actionable item.
Move to approve. This is B3. All of the items, including the requested substitution, removing lot 7 or the address 1742 Greeley and 1738 Greeley in favor of 1706 Greeley and 1702 Greeley.
Okay, legal has given us a thumbs up because that was going to be my question after your motion. Awesome. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Awesome. Clerk, can we get the roll?
Roll call Hill,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. B4.
All right, B4 is at 740 Parallel Avenue. It's for 2 lots to build a 4-unit building there. We did get the same opposition from the Land Bank Advisory Board about not scheduling a neighborhood meeting, as we did in B1 with the Cary neighborhood. But other than that, we did not receive any other comments on this one, and the applicant is here.
Okay. Before we get started, does the applicant wish to make any remarks regarding this application? And then after that, we will have preliminary comments from our standing committee folks. Yes, please state your name and city of residence.
Zarin Gines, residents of Kansas City, Missouri. We have not been able to attend any of the Tremont neighborhood meetings. We did speak to someone briefly before the meeting today, but I am planning to attend that meeting on the 15th, I believe is when it's scheduled for, and actually be able to meet the folks there and build that relationship.
Okay. Thank you so much. Before we get to public comment, colleagues, any preliminary questions regarding this application? Okay, let's jump to public comment. Clerk, has anyone sent in any letters regarding this application?
No comments were received.
Any hands raised online?
There are no hands raised at the time.
Okay. For folks that are in the gallery, would anyone like to speak to this application? Yes, please come forward and state your name, city of residence. You can bring that microphone down. Yeah, he's pretty tall, so you can bring that down.
Vanessa Robinson, Cary neighborhood. That's I wanted to address him to that 740 Perry Avenue. I think that's in my neighborhood. That would be in my district for Cary neighborhood. So. Yes.
Awesome. I do want to give you your full 3 minutes. So is there anything else you wanted to say, ma'am?
Not yet. I'm not on a B4.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Before you go, Commissioner Biden wants to ask a question.
Okay.
Hi, Ms. Robinson, are you saying that the August 15th meeting that the applicant is referencing is your neighborhood group meeting date?
My meeting date is every fourth Saturday of the month.
Okay, because he referenced meeting with the Tremont neighborhood on the 15th. So that's not your group, that's a different group.
Right, but the address, the 740 Pearl Avenue, that's in my area.
Okay. Hopefully,
Boundaries.
he can go to both neighborhood meetings. I'm not familiar with the Tremont neighborhood group, to be honest.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Townsend, is there a question for?
No, just a comment. Since we have both principals here, the president and the requested builder, please make sure that you know how to get in touch with each other. And another thing I want to say, again, there's no requirement to go to the neighborhood group meetings. That's a good thing, but don't wait to communicate with that. I mean, everybody's schedule may not sync up that way, but the main thing is communication, to let the builder know, hey, I'm in this area, and if there's an active neighborhood group, to have that contact. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other folks in the gallery that would like to speak to before? Okay, let the record show there are no other hands raised or folks approaching. I'll go ahead and close the public comment portion. Colleagues, this is an actionable item. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the application, both applications.
Is there a second?
Bynum second.
Thank you. Clerk, can we have the roll?
Roll call, Hill,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Knapp, C1.
All right, C1, we haven't received any comments on, so. It's at 2511 Metropolitan Avenue. The applicant wants to build a strip mall. And they own 2513, so they own the next lot. It is zoned residential, and they will have to change the zone, and that requires a public meeting.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and do PT1 as well. Can you do that?
All right. PT1 is the transfer of the UG owned properties into the land bank for the Mosaic construction project for the.
Gotcha. So it's following up on the earlier application.
That is correct, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'll turn it over. Well, before we do that, committee, any preliminary questions regarding C1 or PT1? Commissioner Bynum?
You, Judd, on this one, who's the applicant? I can't see it.
Mahmoud Akbar, I
Haven't
think.
we seen this before a couple of years ago? No?
I don't recall.
I feel like there was an application that came forward for this parcel that was going to be like the, those trailer restaurants up in North Kansas City. Pardon me for butchering what that is.
The
Iron District.
That was a little different location.
Okay,
on
thank
Strong Avenue. This is actually a pretty new land bank parcel.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Any other preliminary questions? Okay. Clerk, have you received any public comments for C1 or PT1?
No comments were received.
Okay. Any hands raised?
There are no hands raised at the time.
Okay, I'll turn it over to the gallery. Is there anyone that would like to speak to these two applications? Let the record show no one approached. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing for this. Committee, these are two actionable items. Is there a motion?
Just Commissioner Bynum again. So your ABC had no comments on this?
No.
Okay. But we're made aware in the usual fashion, just like they are for all the other land bank.
Yes, they are part of our land bank advisory board.
Thank you. I would make a motion to approve C1 and PT1.
Is there a second?
Townsend, second.
All right, clerk, can we get the roll?
Roll call, Hill,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Knapp, we will not go application by application for the property transfers, so you can go ahead and present all of them together.
You actually just voted on that one.
Oh, we did. Oh, that was the PT one. Okay, so we did knock that out. All right, my fault. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, we will head to our next item on the agenda, which is, let me get my bearings here. All right, the community development draft for 2024 is up next. So we'll kind of make a changeover and go from there.
Good evening, commissioners and staff and neighbors. My name is Kay Sharp, and I am the interim director of community development here at the Unified Government. And the Department of Community Development is responsible for the HUD entitlement funds that we receive each year. And I'm going to give a little bit of background on this CAPER because it's not everyone is aware of how that works. So in order to receive HUD funding, the first requirement that we have to meet is we have to submit what's called a 5-year plan. That's the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, or otherwise known as CAPER. It's a 5-year plan, but we submit that as an overall plan, but then part of that is submitting an annual progress report. And so that's where we are right now. We're actually in year 3 of our 5-year plan. So we are submitting our action plan is what they entitle it. But basically what it is, it's a review of our activities for the previous year. So we are submitting this plan for our 2024 funds. HUD works a year behind, so that's why we are just we're looking at 2024 right now. So a requirement for the next year's funding, and we have received preliminary award for our next year's funding. But we have to submit our annual action plan. It has to be submitted to HUD by August 16. So part of that process is we draft a plan. It goes on our website. We offer public engagement for that. We had 3 public events to give the public time to ask questions about, what we've been up to, what we are looking to do. Both the consolidated plan, the 5-year plan, as well as each of the action plans, they are available on the community development website. Right now, we're still in our comment period for this particular action plan. But we will need to our own citizen action plan, which is also part of what HUD requires. And so under the Unified Government Citizen Action Plan, our plans do have to go before the commission for approval before we forward them on to HUD. So that's what this is that we're doing tonight, is we're looking to have this fast-tracked for the the August 1 meeting, so that we can then get that uploaded to the HUD system, which triggers a 45-day period with HUD. And if we don't hear back from them in 45 days, our plan is approved. If not, they'll send it back to us for any corrections or concerns that they may have. So that's what we're doing tonight.
Thank you, Director Sharp. Appreciate that. So for this particular item committee, as I understand it, there is a request for a fast track, which would take it to this upcoming meeting, which is August 1st, if I'm not mistaken, for a vote. Is that
correct?
Okay, gotcha. And the reasoning for that is the deadline for the Well, can you tell us the reasoning why your request? For
Yes, because since our own citizen action plan requires that commission approval, it's not a HUD requirement, it's a UG requirement that we have, that it be voted on before it be submitted. And like I said, that deadline is August 16th. Really, it needs to be submitted by August 13th to give some time for any computer glitches or anything that we might have.
Okay, gotcha. And this is just kind of a scheduling thing to make sure. we have
Correct.
it. Okay, cool. And we have already, this is year 3 of a 5-year plan.
That is correct.
We've already voted on this. We've codified this. Public comment is already taking place multiple times. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was made clear. Committee, any questions before we go to public comment? Yes, Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Ms. Sharp.
Good evening.
You just answered one of the questions I had, because I thought this usually goes to the full board, so you've already addressed that. One of the things, I don't know if there's any way to show what we have up, so it may be a bit difficult for the public to follow what I'm going to ask about now. And in our packet, there's a breakdown by category, the type of subject matter and dollars allocated. So,
Yeah, actually, staff, can we get that up? It's on the agenda. Thank you, Commissioner, for bringing that up.
Okay.
Yeah, please continue, Commissioner Townsend.
Well, can I wait until they get that up? I
Okay.
think it'll be.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, notice plan. There it
Okay,
is.
thank you. If
Great.
there's any way.
Yeah, if we can zoom in that screen a little bit. Okay, well, any way to make it bigger? Yeah, you might have to escape that and see if it'll just, there you go. Yeah, because all we need to see is the breakdown.
Right.
Commissioner.
Thank you. That'll be helpful. I just wanted to get more detail about the definitions. This always throws me off. So under the Home Investment Partnership Program, where it says rehabilitation, and there's a little bit more than $500,000 for that line. And then we have home administration, next line, and we have ESG program activities and ESG administration. One of the things that I always keep my eye on with these HUD funds, because it's so fundamentally helpful to our constituents, is the pot of money from which things like roofing, emergency, I want to say water heaters.
Sure. Do you want me to go into that a little bit?
Well, in which pot identified here would those types of things be taken from?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So in previous years, our home repair program has been paid out of the CDBG funds, Community Development Block Grant funds. But as you all know, we're in a bit of a budget challenge. So what we are proposing to do next year is we are going to move the funds, the home repair funds out, or activity rather, out of Community Development Block Grant into the Home Partnership Program. So that's why you'll see there under Home Partnership, that's what that 500, what is that? $556,283.90. So this is our proposed budget for that 2024 funding if and when it comes, and we're hoping it comes. So this was an activity that we had to, just part of the overall budget process. We also had to submit our budget for HUD funding as well. So like I said, in the past, the furnaces, roofing, sewers, electrical, ADA, Those were all done on the community development block grant side of things, on that grant. But we are going to have to absorb some costs that were paid out of general funds in previous years, and we're going to have to absorb those into community development block grant funding. So in order to be able to still offer those services, we have to move that activity from CDBG to home partnership, because we're looking at three separate grants. We've got the CDBG, we have home investment partnership, and then we have ESG. So that's how we're looking at absorbing the costs. There are some costs that were under general funds that we are that we may be asked to absorb. So we have to find that money somewhere. So that's where we're moving those activities out of community development into the home program. Does that make sense?
I'm still confused though, because we have here a category, community development block grant awards under livable neighborhoods. We have emergency solutions grant awards and several others here identified. So currently, roofing, some of the other things that you mentioned.
Emergency home repair is what it's called.
Emergency home repair. So is that money here? Are those items of need included in this? Well, under emergency home repair, we're looking at $184,000 and some change. So I'm just trying to get clarity on where here.
Okay, ESG, that's Emergency Solutions grant. That is the grant for homeless activities for our warming center. That's what that is. That's completely different from what we call emergency home repair. Those are completely different activities. So that's what the 184 that you're looking at, those are funds for our warming center and our homeless outreach and the homeless services that we will be providing.
Okay. Again, okay, so where's the on money?
The roofing money is, if you'll look under the home line. Hang on just a sec.
That'd be under the rehabilitation, under home.
Yes, if
For
you
rehab.
look under Home Investment Partnership Program, the total award is $741,711.85. If you look down there, there are two items under that. There's the Chodo set aside. Home requires that we set aside 15% of our total grant award specifically to community housing development organizations. That's what Chodo means. By statute, we have to set aside that money. The rest of the money that you'll see there, which is that $556,283.90, that's that roofing. Those are the roofing, furnace, electrical, ADA activities that we are projecting that we'll be doing. That's why they're showing up under home. You don't see them under CDBG for 2024 because we had to move that fund, those funds.
But that's what this rehabilitation anticipates.
That's correct.
And that and the $500,000. And that's just so important. So sometimes the functions don't necessarily align with the names.
Exactly.
I always ask specifically, where's the roofing money?
Yes.
Where's the water heater money?
It's still there.
ADA. Okay.
Still there.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have
Okay.
Commissioner Hill with her hand raised.
Okay, Commissioner Hill and then Commissioner Bynum. Commissioner Hill?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Sharp, thank you for your presentation. I just have a quick question. Is any of these funds available for abandoned houses in neighborhoods that need to be destroyed?
Yes, that is an allowable activity under under the home investment partnership. I should say that here we're specifically talking about 2024 funding. However, there are funds remaining under the home investment partnership program. We still have funds that are available from 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. I haven't been here that long, so I don't know why, but I can tell you there are still a lot of funds available from those program years. And so one of the activities that I'm hoping that we can do is some demolition and acquisition. There is a stipulation, though, under the home investment partnership program that if we do demolition, if we undertake acquisition, then we have a 12-month period to actually, if we demo a site, we have to build on it. Which again, I think is a great opportunity. But yes, we most certainly can, Commissioner Hill, we can do demolition. We can also acquire properties as well. If we have properties that are problem children in the neighborhood, we can acquire those properties under the home side. And that is one of the reasons I wanted to move our home rehab out of community development, because we have a lot more options on the home side than we do under community development block grant.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. And one other question, how would what is the process, and I'm not sure if this is the right time to ask this question, but what is the process if a neighborhood president wanted to at least start the conversation around an abandoned house in a neighborhood, the demolition process? What is that?
They would want to contact me directly. You know, a lot of times there are strings attached to these properties. You know, they could have an absentee landlord, you know, whatever that process that we would have to go through to actually acquire that property. And that's not my area of expertise. But if we undertook those activities and we were successful in being able to acquire that property, then we can proceed with demolition. But anyone that would want to propose such a property can do that at any time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sharp.
You're quite welcome.
Awesome. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. Two things on the home repair, moving it from CDBG to home. Does any of the eligibility change?
Yes, actually, the eligibility is much easier under the home side. Under home, you can qualify that for rehab under home. If you're a single person and your annual income is $57,000 a year, you can still qualify. Under CDBG, it was 48. So you can make more money on the home side, which is another reason I thought it would be a good move. I mean, we have a lot of people that work in the UG that, you know, would qualify for the program because we're going from 60% to 80% of our area income. So it really is just I think it's a boon all the way around.
Thank you for that. That's nice information. The second question is the CDBG public facilities and improvements beautification efforts, including benches, signage, et cetera, for 1.4 million. Can you give us any further detail on that planned activity?
This was something that our Parks and Rec requested. It has not been approved, but that was something that they were hoping that we would be able to do. I think they want to replace the bus stops. They want to do some signage coming into Wyandotte County from the east. And they just have some, park benches, some, I think they want to do some plantings, that sort of thing. So we have put that money in there because if it's something of that size, we need to go ahead and plan for it. Whether that happens, honestly, will probably be up to the commission. But we do need to plan for something that is on that scale.
And so with you saying it's not approved, do you mean that it hasn't gone through this process and the budget process?
Yes, this is just the budget that we were asked to submit as part of the overall budget activity that we're undergoing right now.
And approval, if we were to solidify those efforts, that approval is going to come through our budget?
I believe so,
option?
yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go to public comment, just to keep moving things along. And then if there are other questions, we'll go ahead and answer them. So clerk, were there any comments received for this item on the agenda?
No comments were received.
Are there any hands raised online?
There are no hands raised online at the time.
Okay. Folks in the gallery that are here patiently, is there anyone that wants to speak on this item? Okay, let the record show no one wants to speak on this particular item. Great. I'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of the meeting. Committee, this is an item for action, and with that proposed action will need to be a request for fast track in that motion. Is there any other comments or is there a motion?
Here.
Yes.
Move to approve the resolution to and have it fast tracked. Move out of this committee and have it fast tracked to the next meeting of the full Board of Commissioners.
Okay. Which would be August 1st. I'll go ahead and second that. Clerk, can we get the roll?
Roll call. Hill,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
carries.
Thank you, Director Sharp. Appreciate your efforts. Okay, that brings us to item number 4, which is a presentation on the equity scorecard given by Ms. Honora Jefferson, President of Oak Grove Neighborhood Association. I do want to kind of give some context. So if you all recall our long meeting, June 27th, this was towards the end of the meeting. And there was some conversation on having this be presented to the full board. And because it was God knows how late, we had decided to move it towards this meeting to give opportunity for preparation. And so, Ms. Jefferson, if you want to make your way either to the podium or up here, whichever is comfortable for you, I'll hand it over to you. And I do want to say, although I am the chair, there are multiple folks part of this effort. So this is not just a presentation to me. But yeah, you all please do. If you all want to come and sit, yeah, please, yeah, whatever makes the most sense. We have some microphones up here. All right. Thank you. All right. We have some seating back there as well with the microphone, so we can make it work from there. All right, I'll hand it off to Ms. Jefferson. You may have to bring the microphone a little bit closer. Yeah, bring it closer. Or just speak louder, whichever works for you.
Okay, great. Can you hear me? I can hear myself, so.
Yep.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you so very much. So this is really upscale here, being able to do this, so thank you. We have we're very anxious and pleased to be able to make this presentation on the equity scorecard and anti-displacement strategy. And appreciate not only the opportunity, but the listening session. We approached it a little bit differently because what you see here at the table are people who are actually involved in the community. Not unlike yourselves, your community people as well. But some of us spend an inordinate amount of time in the community. So what does that mean? There's legislation that's passed, the rules and laws and so forth, and then there's actually what happens on the street. So we come with that type of knowledge and ask you for your support of what we're going to ask today. So I thank you to the Unified Government Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee and Commissioner Andrew Davis, especially you, because when we started this 2 years ago, you and I talked on the telephone and we agreed that we each would do our best to come up with a win-win situation. So I want to thank you for that. And as well, Commissioner Bynum, I want to thank you for your support and getting us to this particular point. Okay, so I've got to remember. Okay, great. So the name of our presentation is A Case for Change, and it's a call for an equitable development and anti-displacement scorecard in the Wyandotte County Land Bank policy. We have such a scorecard that exists right now in the Northeast KCK Heritage Trail. I've had the pleasure of sharing that with Commissioner Townsend, and she's offered some feedback on that. And because we believe of what it has the possibility to do as far as land bank policy, procedures, helping with development, and as well helping with human development and community development, we believe that this would be a useful tool. First, we're going to go with just a little history, and most of us are very familiar with the history and the political context of development in the historic Northeast area. In fact, that's probably a misnomer development. It may be better said as a de-development. We had the urban renewal, we had the land clearance, we had redlining, we had civil rights legislation. I don't hear very much about that. By the time I came up through the Northeast, it was about the time on the heels of, right in the midst of the urban renewal. Mr. Murray would know more about that because he was involved with that than I. But we also had an opportunity to live where we wanted to live. We had an opportunity to go to school where before we were not able to go to school. And we came out of that segregated part of the Northeast and the world opened, and a lot of us took advantage of that. So everything was in a state of flux. You know, everything was in a state of flux. And some of the things that I see today, I think are on the heels of some of that flux that's still happening. Maybe not for good, but you know, it's still happening there. So the redlining, the urban renewal, and all these other things then widened the racial wealth gap. And of course, we know what that redlining did and the legislation and how it prohibited people from being able to move elsewhere and prohibited people from being able to secure loans and financing in order to improve where they live. So they stayed right where they were. And in fact, I was listening to Ms. Sharp as she was talking about the budget and the HUD allocation of money. I remember Ms. Roots, who wanted to have a roof. That's what she needed in this big old house. And she was unable to get a roof because her appraised property did not appraise more than the cost of the roof. So consequently, what happened, she did get that. She was a single woman, and she ended up dying without having a roof on her house. So these are some of the things, the outcomes of what happens to the regulation, what happens to the legislation. And I'm hoping that what you hear today is getting a little glimpse of that so that we can look at it. And you as the policymakers can actually look at that policy and see if it's as robust and intentional to the development that you have in your hearts and your mind for Kansas City, Kansas. We had white flight naturally, but we also had outward migration. The outward migration, well, people have said to me, well, people have abandoned their homes. And we did have people in the Northeast who abandoned their homes. When you look and see, well, I've got a model landfill that is really a municipal contaminated area where they took out so many homes on that. I don't have schools because the schools were raised. I don't have grocery stores. I don't have a hardware store. I don't have this, that, and the other. Then what will people do if they have the opportunity to leave? They will leave. So the outward migration, some of that was caused by that. Some of that was also caused by the drugs that came into the neighborhoods because we actually had an industry of drugs. And to the point where now we don't spend the kind of money that we used to try to spend in order to get rid of it. So all of that added together to the de-development in the historic Northeast. We had land assembly, we have government projects and zoning changes. Government projects like where the current Peregrine Falcon is. We had the All-American Infill project. We had another project that we're going to float homes from Leavenworth to Kansas City and so forth. So we've had some government initiatives that didn't yield the kind of results that was actually expected, actually thought. So all of that adds into the mix. I mentioned the displacement of schools and structures as I listened to Ms. Sharp talking about the possibility of maybe a necessary demolition. And then we had the demographic changes of people getting older. And I remember hearing Commissioner Bynum and Alyssa Marcy with long-range planning talking about the demographic changes that are happening here in Kansas City. I next want to talk about words matter. And I'm going to introduce Rod Jefferson, my daughter, who will be able to give a definition and the importance of these three words: extraction, equitable development, and anti-displacement.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for having us here. First of all, I believe it's always good to start out with a little joy. So I passed around a packet to some of you. Some of you just got the flyer, but please come out to Bird Lives 2, our second Charlie Parker event that is going to be this August 24th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. in Jersey Creek, where you'll be able to have fun, listen to live music, and also see some of the work that we've been doing in Jersey Creek, patching UG bridges, tunnels, installing rain gardens. Right there north of Boys and Girls Club, we're building an amphitheater. We're creating senior cuts from the Mount Carmel senior housing. We're fixing the trail that floods behind Heathwood. We're doing a lot of UG work here, people, so come out and enjoy it. All right. Yes, Elnora, my mother asked me to provide some definitions on three things: equitable development, anti-displacement, and extractive practices. First thing is, as I was thinking about this, is I really think we need to rebrand anti-development, anti-displacement. And I believe what we're really all talking about, and something we can all get behind, is development without displacement. First thing is, it defines the problem in the name. What's the problem? We're developing and displacing people. It moves the issue from a negative to a positive. Instead of anti something, it reframes it as we can have both development and enable people to age in place with dignity. And it reduces the scarcity mindset that so many times drives our policy decisions and unfortunately affects the policies that you all, as policymakers, make in our community. So also in this packet, you will see a couple different things. The second flyer you'll see is an infographic about a soil remediation peer learning groups. Big shout out to Commissioner Hill and Commissioner Bynum who came out and visited our multi-ethnic, multilingual soil peer learning group. And another big shout out to the Urban Planning Department and Alyssa Marcy who co-led this soil peer learning group with Groundwork Energy. And another big shout out to the Environmental Protection Agency who funded this peer learning group to the tune of $25,000. Which mostly went into the pockets of the residents who were involved. As you can see, we had well over 30 participants who met at John's Java and Jazz regularly over the course of how many weeks? 3 cohorts of 4 weeks each, 12 weeks of strong, authentic community engagement, residents from our neighborhood who wanted to know more about the soil, the condition of the soil, of the land you all are selling out of the land bank, because they were concerned that it's not healthy for our community. And in fact, they were right. So this is an example of how a neighborhood community-based organization in the Unified Government Department can come together to co-learn and build resident expertise and produce individuals who inspect what they expect. I'm not going to say it's going to make your job any easier, but it'll definitely make our community a better place. Second in the packet is a little blurb from the Northeast KCK Heritage Trail Plan, which you may remember was passed in August of 2022. Since the passage of this plan, Groundwork Energy has raised $1.5 million in capital to implement this plan, $300,000 of which is in action right now at that CPLR Climate Preparedness and Land Restoration site just north of the Boys and Girls Club and Mount Carmel, and they're at Heathwood Park. So again, I invite you out on August 24th to come enjoy that beautification and benefit that's happening in your backyard. I printed the second page just so we could all remember all the individuals who are involved in this plan, who participated as steering committee members in this plan, individuals of our community and members you will surely recognize. This plan was co-led by Groundwork and the Unified Government, along with other well-known institutions in our community. And that in itself was unique to have a community organization co-lead a plan of this caliber in our community and have it actually adopted by the commission and have us now actually not letting it sit on a shelf, but actually executing it. Next in the packet, you'll see recommended development without displacement strategies. And so this is just to tell you and show you some of the things that we know are possible, some of the things we see in other communities, and some of the things we are ourselves pushing for in our community. There are a couple tools here: the Community Benefits Agreement, the Equitable Development Scorecard, and the Community Land Trust, all of which are in various stages of prototyping or ideation in our community right now. You actually see an example of the Equitable Development Scorecard. This one was tailored specifically for the Northeast KCK Heritage Trail with the goal to help residents and stakeholders, our neighbors, provide feedback on proposed development projects through the lens of community-defined principles and projects outlined in the plan itself. It is a tool that the Wyandotte County Land Bank and all of us can use to assess larger proposed development projects seeking local approval or support. However, it is also made to be adaptive. It can be tailored to beyond the Heritage Trail and to the unique needs of any neighborhood in our larger community. So that is one ask, is that our county administrator take the time to read through the Northeast KCK Heritage Trail Plan, as well as the Northeast Area Master Plan, see how these things align, and figure out a way that we can start to implement some of these things in the Equitable Development Scorecard, because I believe we can all get behind the concept that we want people to be able to age in place with dignity, and all these things we all do for the better of our community. We want those who are here now to be able to enjoy into the future the fruits of those labors. When we can work together to restructure our community to nourish those more vulnerable to adverse external forces and encourage those with the means to do better, to actually do better, for all of us, we can create a standard that kindly holds us, ourselves, and others accountable through right relationship with self, others, and land. When we don't do that, we end up with what we call extractive practices. Any practice that extracts from the people, workers, laborers, stewards, the land, the water, and the air through digging, burning, dumping, and our future, our social and individual capital of any given community is an extractive practice. Any system that does not use just means to produce mutually beneficial ends is an extractive system. Any practice that exploits our natural resources is an extractive practice. And any system that uses a militarized governance structure instead of seeking resolution through mediation and restoration or healing is an extractive system. Taking a landfill, John Garland Park, closing it down, not doing the things that would make it just and help build wealth in the community, such as putting a greenhouse on it, back when AYS wanted to do that. Closing it off and all of a sudden opening it up and putting a futsal court and trail on it. And now those who don't even know what's in there use that. They walk by the methane vents every day in the playground, walking over landfill trash from 8-county region pre-RCRA, which was the Hazardous Waste Act. So we don't know what's in there. That's an extractive practice. Not making a requirement that developers who come to this meeting engage their neighbors who are most impacted by what's happening around them. That is an extractive practice, but we don't have to continue. We can do different. We say we want to do different. We just have to hold that standard. So I hope that I have provided you with some things to think of, some willingness to know that it's been done, it's being done by people in this very institution right now, staff who you all often look to for guidance are doing this work hand in hand right now. And I believe in you that we truly can create a community that is equitable, that develops without displacement, and that stops extracting off the backs of those who can no longer afford to have anything taken from them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Thank you very much. And the next slide talks about the land bank parcels, getting close to the heart of the matter here. This is not a new number, you know this. In District 1, there was 2,316 parcels, and in District 4, 1,276. At the bottom here, I wrote opportunity, a redevelopment plan. Right now, as I read the land bank policy, it's very clear is that the land bank policy is looking to move the needle so that there are no land bank parcels. And the purpose or the benefit of that would be because it would decrease the overhead as far as maintenance is concerned. And then also there's thinking that will increase the tax base. I don't know how many times I have asked Judd, and he's very good to work with, the things that he and I talk about is what's the payback period for the amount that we are actually spending out there? When is that particular payback period? What's the return on investment? What are we getting in those NRA areas where we can have up to a 5 to 10-year rebate on taxes? Is it actually financially efficient? So the bottom line is to look at, in my opinion, the land bank policy, and the options, does everything have to be an options agreement? Or is it possible in the redevelopment of the Northeast to have a mix, to have some options and infills for certain types of developments and to have something else for the larger area. On this particular slide, the next slide, we have the land bank from the community perspective integrated with other policies and plans. There was an application that was put forth tonight. It was B2, and it had to do with the gentleman who's going to build these wonderful multi-family units. And the comment was about the restructuring of Jersey Creek, renaturalization of Jersey Creek. What I find in the work that I do, because I sit on the Land Bank Advisory Board, is that it is a challenge to understand. You have the application, but then there are these other plans that are out there, the other policies that are out there. So how do you synthesize that? How do you pull it all together so that the recommendation that comes from the advisory board is helpful and is meaningful? So the integration with other policies and plans is one thing that I'd like to suggest that we look at when we look at an equity scorecard. Best practice. I have OJT job training because basically that's how we learn what we do. We do it by OJT. There's no form of training. And there's not a book. There's not the orientation or whatever. We learn by doing. We learn by making mistakes. And we also learn by successes, but it's very difficult to do. Missing human and neighborhood development. I find that the development that's spoken in the policy is housing development. But there's nothing in there, very little, if anything in there that speaks to human development. And human development is as important as other types. What do I mean by human development? I'm talking about jobs and training. We have youth that are coming up. I visited the USD 500. They had the Diploma Plus that people can come into in the different areas. KCCC just raised over $70 million for the construction of their downtown. They did that because they wanted to raise the median income. So when we look at the land bank policy and we look at that great asset, which is land, I'd like to consider that what we would want to do is to look at that equity scorecard to determine whether or not we also have the components of community development and human development. Anti-displacement friendly. I bring this up because we had a discussion and I understand, I know that no longer is there a requirement for a neighborhood meeting. In prior renditions of the policy, which it does not have anything to do with the policy that you're going to be looking to vote on tonight, there was a requirement for neighborhood meetings to talk with the neighborhood before any application went through. And so that is important. And the reason that is important is because from where the policy is made, you can't see what's in my neighborhood. You can't see the people who are there. The developer can't see the people who are there. That's not what the developer is there to do. So we don't know what the environment is in the neighborhood. We don't know what the risks are in the neighborhood. And until you actually talk with that neighborhood group and form a relationship with that neighborhood, you have no idea if any of these wonderful developments and projects that are actually going to work. And in the Northeast, like some other places, we're in the midst of a transition. We're in the midst of a transition for culture. We're in the midst of a transition for language. We're in the midst of a transition for, what's the word, atomy, I believe is the word. It's the social values are different. They're different today than what they were when I grew up. And so everything is in a state of flux. So that communication and that reach out and that touch between the developer and the neighborhood group is not a deterrent to stop development. It's really an asset to build in better development and development that is sustainable. Health equity, we're going to get to more about that, but the health equity is a quotient in the land and in what's going on. And I'll save that for Pastor Carter. And then the next thing that I question, and I am not trained in economics, all right, but I question the census growth, is the way that the applications, the way that we're looking at these applications and we're getting the housing development, is any of that adding to the growth of the census tract? And what does that census tract mean? So looking to Great Kendall who's on vacation to get some help in that particular dimension. Because if I look at District 1 and Commissioner Townsend, you probably have looked at it too. What's there to really attract? How can District 1 become a destination point? How can a realtor look at District 1 and say, hey, you don't have to worry about going out to Commissioner Davis. He's got some great stuff out there. Okay, but you've got great stuff in District 1. I think some of those things are predicated on the census and what kind of income you have. I've oftentimes heard, okay, if we have rooftops, that business people look at rooftops. I don't maybe agree with that. I just did some stuff at Juniper Gardens, and there were a lot of rooftops there. And there was one retail, which was the liquor store. I don't think that added really to the census tract and attracting new business and retail and so forth. So that's why I look at the policy. Is it geared to, in any situation, to helping that particular dimension? So now, and thank you. So now I'm going to health equity, urban soil contamination. With this caveat here, if doing nothing is not the right choice, what is the right thing to do? And I'm going to thank and introduce Pastor Carter, who is a co-founder of the Health Equity Task Force. Thank you very much for coming, Pastor Carter.
Thank you, Sister Jefferson. I certainly appreciate an opportunity to say something in my role is trying to be a good steward of what God has blessed all of us with. And I am not the co-founder of the Health Equity Task Force. I actually came alongside them later on as COVID began to ravage our community. But I was certainly privileged to work with those persons like Broderick Crawford and Dr. Alan Griner and others who have worked so diligently to make sure that our community answered the clarion call that came. As it relates to the Wyandotte County Land Bank policy, I'm wondering, is it consistent with the mission that groups like the Health Equity Task Force and NRG feel like brings about the health equity that we desire to have in our community? As it's written today, the Wyandotte County Land Bank inventory policy ignores the possibility that the urban soils in its land bank's inventory contain levels of lead that are greater than the EPA screening levels of 220 ppm. Based upon studies performed nationwide on urban soils, including our next door neighbor, Kansas City, Missouri, it is highly probable that KCK's urban soils are mirror images of that. This is particularly alarming considering that the majority of the Wyandotte County Land Bank is located in the formerly redlined northeast area. This area is cited by statistics that indicate poor ratings in the social determinants of health. And in our presentation, we would like to ask that the unified government throttle the accepted land bank applications to match the availability of funds for site assessment and environmental assessments. Lead is not the only hazardous substance found in urban soils. It is, however, found more often and in greater quantities than other contaminants. And so we have concerns because we know that that's part of the social determinants of bad health in our communities. And Wyandotte County continues to lag behind many of our counties, most of our counties, as relates to that. And so I think this is something that certainly warrants our looking closely at that policy and making those changes necessary to bring, again, us up to speed so that we can equitably begin to approach what we are doing with our land banks in such a way that it impacts our community in a positive way. That's my request, Sister Jefferson. I hope that helps in our efforts to bring that equity that the Health Equity Task Force and other groups in our community have been working so hard to even the playing field. I'm privileged to work with various groups, but anybody who's doing something good for the community, I feel like not necessarily to come to the forefront of that, but to be a part of any of those kind of efforts are our responsibility as leaders and even as followers, because I'm certainly okay with following certainly such a sagacious and wise person as yourself who knows the historical footprint of how we got to where we are and are still valuable enough to come alongside others and do the research and then make recommendations that are commensurate with helping to bring about the health equity that we need to see happening in our communities. I have, and I'll say this and I'll shut up, I have 12 grandbabies, 7 boys and 5 girls. And one of the reasons I work so hard in this community is I want to see them grow up in a community that gives everybody, I say it at the church all the time, Lottie Dottie and everybody an opportunity to progress economically and otherwise. And I want to see that. And I think equity is the way that we bring that about. And so anything I can do to help them, anything I can do to help all grandbabies. I consider all of the members of the churches to be a part of our heritage, irregardless of their race, creed, color, culture, all of that. We have a responsibility to make sure that our communities, particularly as it relates to health, is being handled in a way that makes equity the goal and something that we're not delaying as we have for so many, many years, but something that we have made a priority and we are working diligently to bring about that change. So thank you, Sister Jefferson, for an opportunity to just say a few words, and I hope they came in a grand way.
Thank you very much, Pastor Carter. Thank you very much. And you mentioned a couple of things where we spend money on that issue of equity. I'm looking at the CHIP report here, and I do remember, I was trying to find it, Commissioner Davis, but I couldn't find it, but I'm going to go back and find it. And that is the meeting where the CHIP produced its 2024 to 28, I want to say, new CHIP program. And the young lady made a great presentation there. I remember Commissioner McKiernan and you both said that the idea and the notion behind the CHIP and the focus areas and raising the scoring in the state was something that we should look at that CHIP policy and incorporate it and integrate it in with the other policies at the UG. And the land bank policy may be that opportunity to do that. So we spent money on the CHIP. We're still not above, either at the bottom or near the bottom. I see here there's a heat report. I don't know, I imagine you have seen it because the mayor has oftentimes talked about the heat report, which is a statistical report that talks about longevity and the other differences east of 635 and elsewhere. And it's real. East of 635, we have the coal-fired plants, you know, and the contaminants that used to be there. So thank you again, Pastor Carter. So then the next one, thank you, Adrienne, is what do we propose? What are we proposing? Policies to practice. I have really, here's a big ask here, and it goes along with the equity scorecard, is to either separate the policy, the land bank policy, or Northeast KCK, so it could be focused, or redevelop it in Northeast KCK, which doesn't have the same types of data and statistics as elsewhere, or a section that addresses Northeast KCK. Those are options that you may even think of others, but something that actually focuses so that the redevelopment of the Northeast has a chance to really make it. It's not going to make it off the master plan. It's not going to make it off the citywide master plan. It's not going to make it on the Heritage Trail. It's not going to make it on the climate adaptation plan. It really actually needs a redevelopment plan that draws from all those other plans and proposals and services and puts it in. The EPA sent me something because they've recently had a success story in St. Louis. And that success story is in an area that is close to Ferguson, Missouri. that was destroyed by the riots and that type of thing and burned out and so forth. And they did a series of community engagements and so forth. And what they've done is to now there's new life, there's businesses, there's a senior housing that's in that area and so forth. The EPA has offered that technical support and the funds through the Trust of Groundwork NRG, through the UG department. And I believe that we could actually get that done. Inclusion of equitable development and anti-displacement scorecard, we've talked about that. Collaborative government citizen engagement. Ra has mentioned the wonderful relationship that we have with Alyssa Marcy and others at the UG. Just phenomenal. I've learned a lot and hope to learn more. She's very kind. She allows me to ask my questions. That's fantastic. Measurements and review. This is an area, Commissioner Davis, that really, as I listen to you and Commissioner Barrows, that this is an area that you guys really wax eloquently on. And so I'll try to say a little bit, and that's the financial efficiency of what we're doing in the land bank. What is the impact on the budgets? When I look at some of them, I don't know them all. I know the BPU gives a little gift, if you will, for, to help with the installation, connect fees and so forth. I haven't researched all of that. And then I know the UG has recently passed up to 5 years, a gift of not charging certain types of building fees and that type of thing. Excuse me, my terminology is not on. What kind of impact is that having on the budgets? Because if you take it for one thing, what else is going to suffer? And then again, what kind of impact are what we're doing on the financial metrics, like the ROI and like the payback period and other metrics that I'm not versed in. Planning and power quality. This is key. Gee, Merry Christmas. I think you said once, Commissioner Davis, in one of your emails, that if the neighborhoods had a plan like the Douglas Sumner plan, absolutely, I agree with you 1000%. Douglas Sumner got started, I want to say, back in 2015, maybe even a little bit before then, because it had the force of lift. It had the force of neighbor works. It was Douglas Sumner, it was a cathedral neighborhood, and it was downtown. They invested that money into those 3 neighborhoods, brought them up wonderfully. Of course, we had the champion, Mrs. Lee, we all remember that, how devoted she was. But out of that came that quality of life plan. And in fact, they're ready for another one. That set the stage for what Douglas Sumner needed to do in order to move forward. And they have made leaps and bounds and are continuing to do that. So absolutely right, I agree. That's exactly what we need in the Northeast. Unfortunately, when Commissioner Barnes asked about that, if so, we only have so much money, Commissioner, and you got a big area, okay, so we can't get to everybody, but that's absolutely it. Then planning and empower sustained peer group learning, PLGS, for community engagement and neighborhood support. And I am not the expert on there, but if you'll bear with us coming to the end here, I would like to introduce you to Adrienne Showalter Matlock to answer the questions that we have here, which is what in the world is a PLG and what's its value, Adrienne?
Thank you so much, Miss Elnora. Thank you everybody for giving me a chance to speak tonight. My name is Adri Matlock. I'm the Operations Director at Groundwork Northeast Revitalization Group and a 15-year resident of Kansas City, Kansas. So I want to pause for a second, and in my comment, I'm addressing all of you here in front of me, but also everyone that's here in the room. Hey, Miss Vanessa. I don't know about you, but community meetings, town hall meetings, public meetings are not my favorite activity. I wonder if you resonate with some of the experiences that I have had, some of the challenges that I have seen and heard voiced from both residents and UG commissioners and staff alike. So maybe if you could raise your hand or raise your hand in your heart if you have experienced any of these frustrations. Community engagement meetings, tensions running very high. residents leaving the meetings wondering if they're really heard by decision makers. The same people show up to all the meetings. Or maybe you see one person who shows up, makes a fuss or whatever the case may be, but then you never see them again. Those who experience the most challenges, maybe they often can't participate. I hear this a lot. Maybe they're working, multiple jobs or raising kids or whatever the case may be. Or another that I hear is that the community doesn't have the technical expertise really needed to give meaningful guidance on policy creation and implementation. True community engagement can be very costly. I hear that a lot. And requires an outside planning or engagement consultant. So commissioners, did any of those sound familiar or hit home for you? Yeah. Back here. Well, peer learning groups and similar community engagement strategies seek to address these issues by taking a different approach to community engagement that is cost efficient, that increases the expertise of community members about a given topic that might seem complex or intimidating, that increases the relationships between UG representatives and community members that can sustain ongoing co-learning. These types of strategies that I'll get into the details, but I just also want to name that they've been implemented by multiple unified government departments. So livable neighborhoods, the health department, the planning department have already done or been involved in this type of community engagement strategy. Local institutions and organizations, including KU Med, Community Housing of Wyandotte County, Groundwork NRG, and Community Health Council have also adapted and implemented similar types of community engagement strategies as a peer learning group. I had the great pleasure to be involved with the COVID L-Heats with Reverend Carter. And there are a lot of similarities to that for those of you that were involved with our COVID response strategy as Wyandotte County. So what's a peer learning group? What does it actually look like? It's an iterative cohort structure. So you start with, a problem, you start with a potential solution. In this case, it's land bank reform. And you recruit members from the community who are most affected by whatever the issue is. You create a transparent application process and you get started. You recruit 15 community residents who are affected and you host a session, a series of workshops that minimize barriers to participation so that the people who are most affected can really participate fully. So minimizing barriers includes things that also grow relationships, like providing food so that the UG representatives and the community members can sit down and share a meal together. It includes compensating people for their time to participate in such a way honoring the expertise that they bring as residents. It includes providing childcare because we know that that is a barrier to full participation for caregivers, especially women. And you start with the first cohort. By the end of 4 weeks, you have a group of people who are knowledgeable, functionally knowledgeable, and have shared their knowledge with the UG staff that participated or elected officials. Then you start the second cohort with a new 15 people, as well as anybody from the initial cohort that participated. And that way they're encountering the material for an additional time and helping to teach alongside and getting a deeper knowledge of the topic at hand. And then you do it for a third time. And within 6 months' time, and for the $25,000, the total cost typically for doing that, you will wind up in the past when this happened, you wind up with a group of about 20 very committed, directly affected, and knowledgeable community members who are interested in being involved for the long term. If you go about this in about 12 months' time, you could expect to have a group of 20 folks who are knowledgeable and have gotten involved in some of the weeds of implementation or policy navigation, and you can implement a pilot project. It's not hard to do things differently. At the end, you'll have a group of community residents who have increased their knowledge on what might have seemed a technical or intimidating topic. You've increased the knowledge of the UG representatives and policymakers in a way that makes the policy very guided by the insight of the residents. You increase the relationships and minimize the trauma that we are all experiencing trying to navigate a institution that was formed by a settler colonial genocidal government, now navigating and managing this land that we can have a healthy relationship with. At the end, you'll have a nuanced, equitable, and realistic policy and next steps. This spring, last fall and spring, Groundwork Energy and the UG Planning Department did a peer learning group series on the topic of soil remediation. It involved UG staff. It involved 40 residents. There was hands-on soil testing done in which residents discovered that the soil around their homes are at toxic levels, that their children have been playing in soil that is contaminated with lead and other contaminants. We had a presentation from the lead department. We had the soil testing done by researchers at K-State University and covered topics, again, that might seem technical or difficult, but that we all just need to learn, like brownfields, like soil contamination, soil remediation, ecosystem services. Peer learning groups have been done on other topics by the people I mentioned earlier, the entities I mentioned earlier, on topics like stormwater management, climate change, affordable housing, community land trusts, cancer survivor support networks, and COVID testing and vaccinations. Funding has come from places as big or reputable, I guess, as the National Science Foundation and the EPA, and also local philanthropic entities like the Health Forward Foundation. I join my voice and Groundworks in imploring you all to consider taking an approach like this that centers the most directly affected from the start, that compensates people for their time, that builds a relationship over meals, that minimizes barriers to participation through things like interpretation and childcare. I truly believe that this will create the type of land bank reform that we need, that will minimize displacement, and that will bring alongside residents and UG representatives to learn together.
Thank you very much. Part of the peer learning group produced this particular document. This is just the beginning, the very first page of that. It's a document that's done by Groundwork NRG, and it talks about and gives all of the clues to what a person needs to do in development, how a person goes through the land bank application, what a person needs to do in looking at phase 1 and phase 2 site assessment. So we do have that, it's available.
And it's on YouTube, it's recorded. Watch it tonight if you want.
Okay, what do we need to get to where we want to go? The redevelopment plan and equity, inclusion of the equity scorecard, the capacity building for neighborhoods, the technical assistance. We have the EPA groundwork, Mark, others, looking for a deep sustained collaboration and cohesion between the stakeholders and the UD departments. There's someone who helped with this presentation. It's Beverly Easterwood, and I hope that she's on phone. She had a conference that she needed to attend. And so Beverly, are you there? You don't see her? Okay, all right. Well, then let me end this, and thank you again for your patience. What we heard when we did our research for our presentation is that there was opportunity for legacy families. Legacy families were looking at the policy and they said, okay, we're going to have to pay something for our extended yard, which they love the extension yard, but could there be a little break for legacy families? If I've lived next door to a lot and I've been taking care of it for 10 years or 15 years, is there a way that I don't have to be charged for that? Unfettered discretion, which means that whatever the policy is, it applies as much as possible to everyone, rather than it not doing that. NBE, WBE, local requirements for rehabbing, there were none in the rehab program. And so I would ask that the policy speak to that and that be changed to have those types of requirements. And no reference to the option contract. Sorry, there's a typo here in the policy. There's nothing in the policy that relates to the options contract. So there's information in the options contract that a person can't get to when it reads the policy. There's not a need a mention of HOAs or covenants. We ran into that at Oak Grove because we do have a homeowner association in the Northeast. The only neighborhood group that had one was the Homes. And that functioned very well. But now we have I guess, reliving a development, the Peregrine Falcon. That group is looking to formalize, I heard Mr. Murray use that term, homeowner association. But there's nothing in the policy in the application so that the applicant knows that he or she needs to contact and look at, Mr. Townsend, you said you used another word, discipline or something like that, or covenants and so forth. What we heard was a need to focus on neighborhood development in place aging. Is when we have a high rental or a rental piece of that, how do single women and people who are disabled, how safe do they feel? Need development that raises census tract, we got to talk about that. Need opportunities for US 500 Diploma Plus and KCC. Oh, thank you very much to Beverly, because she was helping put this together. To Robert Hughes Jr., who has the idea on the redevelopment plan with his expertise. Rachel Rod Jefferson, Pastor Tony Carter, Adrienne Matlock. Thank you very much. And the ask is the incorporation of the equity scorecard and anti-displacement strategy, and also consideration of a redevelopment plan for the Northeast. And I think I mentioned that Tulsa has 2 land banks. Oklahoma City has 2 land banks. One from the city, the urban renewal land, and then they also have one run by the county. So that it is possible to have more than one approach. Thank you so very, very, very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. In the interest of time, I will, let's go ahead and open the public comment portion. I know folks have been waiting very patiently, and then we can go ahead and engage further. Clerk, I'll ask, were there any comments or letters received for this item?
No comments were received.
Are there any hands raised online?
No hands are raised at the time.
Okay. For the folks that have been patiently waiting in the gallery, would anybody like to speak to this particular item? Thank you. Just give your name and city of residence. And you have 3 minutes. And make sure the mic is on. It should be green.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Daisha Bush. I live in the Northeast area. And my comment is my husband and I have applied for a land bank. Mr. Judd, Miss Alyssa, Gunnerhand, all of the UG people whose names we heard, even you, sir, we have called them. It was very confusing to understand how to start this process. The easiest thing was filling out the application of 5 questions. After that, it became very complicated. It is still very complicated. If I didn't know people and they weren't friendly, I don't know where we'd be right now. It feels like there is an advantage for builders who have lots of money and not much for those of us who have earned our own money by working. I don't want any surprises, you know what I'm saying? So I'm hearing rumors that there may be lead in the soil, there may be a buried house underneath the ground, all of these things. And so we only have a little bit of money. So I understand that the UG doesn't have a lot of resource to help us, but I am a multi-generational resident. I'm one of the few people who did not leave and stay away, who's coming back and wants to see our corner look amazing like way out in the West. So I guess my concern with this policy is it doesn't help. If it wasn't for Judd and Alyssa and all the other people we called, that policy doesn't help. If you don't know terminology, you don't know who your neighborhood group is, you don't know, and I'm active in my neighborhood group because I'm the secretary, my president is sitting right here in front of you. But if she didn't like me, she could say no. And I know that it's not a requirement that all these different groups will decide if you approve or not as a great commission, but it's very confusing. So I'm hoping that in all that you've just heard, that I did participate in one of the community things when Jill was begging people to buy land. And we were like, oh my God, like I talked this Kansas City, Missouri dude to move into KCK, which is a no-no apparently on earth. And so when Judge said, hey, buy stuff as a resident, because I live in my great-grandfather's house that he built, I want to stay in that corner. But it feels like I'm being told no. We want to wait for people with money, with builders who can take 16 lots and build duplexes. It's just not fair.
Yeah,
And
we're not remaining.
we're not fighting anyone down here. Nobody's fighting to get the land down here, but I already live down here. So I guess my point is, if we are going to look at the policy before we approve it, I would love to sit on whatever task force that is to help us be more open to hearing the comments of the community. I work in education, so teaching people and learning is a part of my passion. So I'd be happy to do that, but terminology would be helpful. Having surprises about options agreements when we thought the only money we'd have to spend is this, that, and the other is not good when your budget is like this. So anyway, that's the input that I wanted to add.
Okay. Thank you so much. Other comments?
We
Okay.
do have a hand raised online for
Yep.
Ms. Beverly.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. That was why I didn't respond earlier, is because I couldn't unmute myself. But I apologize for not attending in person, but I am attending a national real estate conference, and I hope I learned something that can help us at the UG.
Ma'am, please state your name and residency for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Beverly Easterwood, and I live in Kansas City, Kansas. I used to have a little.
Continue.
Okay.
Continue.
I used to have a little cartoon of a picture of a little girl sitting in a stack of paper, going feverishly through these papers, and the caption underneath said, I was put here by God to do a certain number of things. Right now, I'm so far behind, I will never die. I feel like that sometimes because it seems like there's always something to do. And because we can't always do it all, I pray constantly for guidance in terms of my purpose. And one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that it's my purpose to help protect the Northeast area, to participate in seeing that its redevelopment is a priority as opposed to a process of lot disposal, just for the sake of reducing maintenance costs. Land is an asset. People go to war over land. The first thing that a developer has to show to a lender is land control. One of the biggest costs one of the biggest pre-development costs is land assemblage. It took decades for the Northeast area to reach the level of devastation that currently exists. That cannot be corrected overnight. There must be a deliberate and concerted effort to overcome. With the billions of dollars being spent within a 5-minute drive of the Northeast area, it is only logical and natural that the Northeast area could be positively impacted by that new development.
You have 1 minute remaining.
I do feel very strongly that you are all the types of individuals that don't look or that don't back down from a challenge just because it's difficult. You wouldn't have run for office otherwise. I believe that God brings all the pieces together for a purpose at the proper time. I believe that He has put you in your positions at this time to bring the change necessary in order to right a decades-old wrong. I believe that if the answer can't be found in another city that has already explored this problem, we can find it for ourselves. And how great would that be for Kansas City, Kansas, to be a model for the nation? I believe that whatever resources necessary to make it happen can be found. Where there's a will, there is a way. The greater the obstacle, the more glory in overcoming it. Staying committed to moving forward can help you conquer any obstacle, no matter how
Time
large.
has expired.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Easterwood. Are there any other folks that want to provide public comment? Yes.
Vanessa Robertson, Caring Neighborhood. It don't take me 3 minutes to say what I have to say because I just say what I gotta say and I'm done. I wanted to speak on the land bank on the land with the lead on it. My yard was tested and my lead MPB, I think that's what it is, was 652. That's high. And after that, it really had me kind of scared to stay in my home because they, once I have attended some of the meetings with Alyssa and Adrian, the ECHO meetings and different meetings around that they have. And once I found out that I had the lead in my yard, then I didn't qualify for the programs to get the lead up out of my yard. So now I'm just living in a home that's lead that's terminated, and then I have grandkids that come over and they getting affected by it, or I'm scared to let them go out to play because of the termination. So what do we do about that? We got, and then it's not only my yard, every house down there that's 100 years old and older has probably got lead in their yard, lead in their homes. So what we have a big problem. Okay, then we have the land bank wanting to have the property, the land on hold down there. Okay, so why it's on hold? Who cuts it? Okay, because if the land that I'm next to, if I don't cut it, but it's on hold, for who? For who? Who's gonna cut it? Who's gonna pay me to cut it? I'm paying to get it cut. Because the city don't pay for it, the county don't come out and pay and paint it. Okay, and like I said, there's a lot of grown up grass out through my neighborhood, that won't nobody cut. If the taxpayers are paying for that property,
1 minute.
then okay, they need to charge them, cut it. Why do we have to live just because we're in the ghetto or in the hood or however they want to call it? Why do we have to live like that? With all grown up trees, the alleys are closing up, the sidewalks or the trees are growing over the sidewalks. Kids have to go out in the street. They can walk so far, then they got to go out in the street to pass some bushes or whatever, and then catch again a block later. please look into these things. Thank you, Groundworks, for working with us. Thank you, Ms. Jefferson. And, I just want to address that, and there is lead. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other folks that would like to come up and speak? Yes.
Then we have one more hand raised as well.
Do I let them talk first? Oh, okay, thank you. My name is Darnell Bush, and I live in KCK, and it's my wife. And I've been talking to her a lot lately, and I say that this is easy. I realize that as commissioners that you guys have more difficult stuff to deal with than this. This is easy. We want the lead out of the soil. We want the houses that are buried underneath. We want to know that this is easy. This is, I know you guys got more difficult things to worry about than trying to get the lead out of, or other contaminants out of the soil. You wouldn't want to have it in your yard. And this is easy. And I just can't understand why we're discussing this when we've spoken to the EPA, and they'll come out and they will get the lead out, you know, pardon the pun, but they'll get the lead out and other contaminants. And I don't want to be compared to J.O. County anymore, because J.O. County, when they go to get land out of their land bank, they don't have to worry about trees being in their lot. They don't have to worry about lead in their lot. So if their lots cost 20, 30, 40 grand, but when they get them, they don't have to worry about spending money to get the trees out of there. They don't have to worry about the lots being contaminated with contaminants. And I think that I was hoping that the UG would do a little bit more.
Minute remaining.
If we want to obtain this land, that they would at least come in and get rid of the trees. I've been discussing this with my wife for a very long period of time, that I want the trees to be taken out of the lot. And whether you're going to do it or not, it kind of sounds like that's a no. But I just want it to be understood that I realize that you guys got tremendous amounts of difficult decisions that you guys have to make, talking about the commissioners. But this does not seem to be one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other folks that would like to provide public comment? Okay, I'll go ahead and, oh, wait, there's one more. Yes, yes.
The OCP president, go ahead and unmute yourself and speak.
I would like to
Please state your name for
support
the record and residency.
the call for inclusion of an equitable and development and anti-displacement scorecard and a Northeast KCK redevelopment plan. I am
Please state
in
your
full
name for the
support of
record.
that organization for community preservation.
Ma'am, can you give your name and city of residence for the record? The representative from OCP.
Yes, sir. Did my comments get heard?
Yes, we just need your name and city of residence. Are you there,
I was wondering
ma'am?
I was wondering if my comment was heard.
Yes, your comment was heard. We just need your name and city of residence for the record.
Again, this is Candy Leonard Caldwell, resident of Kansas City, Kansas. Organization for Community Preservation, President. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Candy. Okay, any other folks online?
There are
Okay.
no other hands raised.
Awesome. There's no one else in the gallery. Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion. Committee, I know we have quite a bit to digest with this. So I wanted to kind of open up for questions and kind of engagement for this item. Does anybody have some questions or comments they'd like to share? Yes, Commissioner Townsend.
Well, I'd like to thank all the presenters, and just as you've already said, Mr. Chairman, this is a lot to digest, so I have no questions right now. That's just how that's just my style. I'd rather read it, ask you questions before I make any other comment, and that's not going to be consumed tonight. But thank you for your interest. I do see, if you will allow Mr. Judd to answer this question if he can.
Yeah.
The issue of lead. Could you talk about what our current policy is, whatever it is, with regard to land bank? I'm under the impression that currently we have a buyer beware. That's why we have option agreements. So those who want to build can find out if they can do so. The old policy used to be, I guess, and this predated my arrival on the commission, that houses were cleared, buried into the property. And under old systems, if someone wanted to obtain that vacant property, title passed from the unified government to the owner for them only to find out maybe they couldn't. Didn't happen all the time. And then a reversal had to be made. So that is the current rationale for the option agreements. The ownership of the property remains with the unified government until the tentative buyer or the option holder can do due diligence and see what's there. So if you could just explain briefly what our current policy is.
Our current policy with the options is I tell the applicants about the program. The whole point of the option is for people to come and see if they can build these projects. We do have brownfield money to fund the applicant, to fund the testing, and then if it comes back positive, we do have money to clean it up. About that. But we don't have enough money to clean up the whole city. So it's
Okay, thank you. Up, not so fast.
I think he needs some water.
So you said there is some money for cleanup, for abatement, if the option holder finds that some remediation is needed.
yes, the brownfields has like they'll go out and do research of what used to be there, and they'll test the soil, and they'll come back with their findings. If they find that there's lead in the soil, we do have money to clean that up.
And the money that's allocated for cleanup, is that the same for every lot, or does it matter how large the lot is, or what?
Commissioner, this is not my area expertise, so
Okay, okay. All right, that's all right. The money for remediation, that's a budgeted item? Or how does that come? I guess what I'm getting to is the indelicate question of, we voted revenue neutral, things are gonna change. Is it possible that that might be
I believe it's not
impact?
our money. I believe it's federal.
Okay, thank you. Speak on. Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
Absolutely. And so the reason why I know this is because Groundwork Energy just secured a $500,000 award to remediate 1726 Quindaro Boulevard of the environmental contaminants that are in that building that is currently owned by Pride. and is the future site of the Northeast Grocers Cooperative. And so there is a regional brownfields coalition that formed between Jackson County, Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas. Alyssa Marcy has a voting share on that. And that combination of partners was able to secure both assessment funds and remediation funds. And so I believe that is the money that Judd is speaking of in terms of the availability of a phase one assessment, which is the research portion to understand what was there that could have contaminated or co-located near dry cleaners, things like that, to understand what the contamination could be. And then phase two to actually do testing to verify contamination. And then you would move into cleanup and remediation. So it's kind of several different pots of money, but Andrew Bracker at Kansas City, Missouri, is the head of that commission that actually sits within the city of Kansas City, Missouri. And in order for an individual to not be a part of the chain of contamination, when they acquire the property from the unified government, they have to have had a phase one done prior to the acquisition of the property. Otherwise, they are not eligible for cleanup dollars.
And I believe a notice to the tentative owner or say the option holder is provided with that. So the money that you're talking about is not just for that particular location, but it's also money that would finance the investigation and remediation if necessary that the UG has.
There is money that sits within the Regional Brownfields Commission out of the city of Kansas City, Missouri, that can fund both assessment and cleanup.
Okay, and we may or may not have access to that fund. Yeah, we
You have access to that funding.
somewhere.
Yeah, Alyssa Marcy is the point person on that funding and has a vote in how that funding is spent. And I personally think that they haven't seen enough applications from Kansas City, Kansas, and Wyandotte County. I think that we could definitely be putting more applications forward, as a portion of that money is supposed to be spent in Kansas City, Kansas, and Wyandotte County. I believe up to a third of the dollars that they receive. And they just received an additional $1 million award as well, because Andrew Bracker is very good at securing federal dollars for this work. So that's definitely an area that Alyssa can edify us all on.
Okay, thank you.
I just flag Commissioner Townsend that, to my understanding, I definitely would love to be corrected on this, but that there is no requirement, there's no legal requirement to remediate soil, even if it is found to be contaminated. I just want to make sure somebody could find it out and a developer could say, oh, too bad, this will kick up lead in the air and harm my neighbors who are longtime residents, but I don't really care about that. And no, they are not required to remediate it. At any level, state, county, land bank.
Okay, I do want to get to Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Townsend, do you have additional questions? Okay, I want to get to Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Hill, what questions or comments do you have?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things I just like to make comments on. I listened intently to our community. I listened when Ms. Robinson said that she had her land tested and it was, it came up positive for lead, but she did not qualify to get the lead removed. So that was a big concern of mine. How, I just want, well, we can do the details later. These are just comments. And then I think it was Mr. Donnell Bush who kept saying, this is easy, get the lead out. And then after I just heard Ms. Jefferson talk about the amount of dollars that are available, I'm hoping some kind of way we can definitely do something positive to help our constituents with making sure lead, especially on their property, which may be next door to land bank property, that we can definitely make a difference by getting that lead out of there. I don't have any idea what that would require. And then I heard somebody say it was two types of assessment, a site assessment and then some other kind of assessment. I'm not sure what that second one was, but I don't know if that was Mr. Tony Carter who said that, Pastor Tony, I'm not sure, but I do remember hearing there were two different assessments. And then Ms. Jefferson also mentioned the extracted practices. And one of the things that she mentioned, and I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, was there may be a need to require a community developer or a developer to meet with the neighborhood group. There may be that need. We could possibly change that. It looks like right now the developers are really not taking our suggestion to meet with the neighborhood groups. And so we may need a clearer, more dominating voice in maybe requiring that or having some type of initial conversation, because right now it appears to be totally ignored. So those are two or three of my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I'm taking different notes down so that we can chart a way forward. So do hang on. Commissioner Bynum, do you have some comments?
I do. Miss Elnora, thank you for the time and energy and that you've brought to it. And, you know, from me to you, mostly, thank you for the love that you've brought to it. I hope you know how much I appreciate that. I truly do. And I appreciate the presentation and the concept of creating the scorecard. And I think when I hear presentations like this, my brain starts kind of pinging on the details. And so I go straight to the tactics often and miss the strategy. So that's where I am right this minute, because that's how my brain works. So it's going to be a day or two or more before I can go back to the strategy. And let me just put some of the tactics out there right now, just for us to think about as we move through. How can we incorporate what you've brought into a land bank policy that I think does serve well? I'm not opposed to a requirement that any person, developer or otherwise, that wants a land bank parcel, one or more, go visit the neighborhood group. Not opposed to that. But if we look at the Northeast area, which is where the majority of the parcels are, there's not a neighborhood group everywhere. There are gaps in where those neighborhood groups are located and the coverage that they provide. So for example, we would want livable neighborhoods and our mapping department to produce for us a new map, a current updated map of the boundaries of the neighborhood groups that could go along with certainly the contact information for the groups. And then my brain says, what if there's no neighborhood group? Do I not have to do that requirement? Is there a secondary group I should go talk to, like groundwork? Who reps the neighborhood when there's no neighborhood group? So just a question. I was reading about the soil remediation. I'm really glad to hear that there is some funding available to us. And I'd been working with Daryl and Daisha Bush on their application because one of their concerns was should we try to ask for a hold on our, which policy are we following? The old one or the new one, or where are we? So anyway, we had multiple emails and conversations. And so from that, I did learn actually quite a bit about what Alyssa does for us, just with regard to the brownfields. And it's nice to know that there is some level of funding available. But again, 4,000 land bank lots. So I guess that money's probably first come, first serve. And then I guess we will rely on you to help us continue to write those grants and partner with us for the other monies, because I don't know how much soil remediation costs on a regular lot that I'm gonna build one house on, but I bet we don't have enough of it times 4,000. Just taking a guess. So I think we should address, as we look at this policy moving forward, the remediation piece of it, and even how much is available for remediation. We could add some requirements around the health equity component of making sure the soil is safe. I think that's fair. I think tying it to the chip is fair and an excellent idea that we could even outline within our policy. Here's why. This is why we're saying this, because look at this data. I think that's fair. I have a lot of other tactical questions like that. And again, around the PLGs and the scorecard, my brain's just like, okay, how do you codify that into policy? So those things to me need more conversation and more discussion around how does one take a community engagement concept and codify it into government policy. That's kind of a new thing to think about. So we've gone so far as to say, please go talk to the community. That's how we've codified it so far. Please go ask the neighborhood. And then my brain says, well, what if the neighborhood says, I don't like you. I don't like what you're gonna do. I don't want that on my street. I don't want that down the street from me. How much voice is that at this table? I don't know the answer. But that's worth contemplating. Maybe your project for your land bank parcel is fantastic, but your neighbor just doesn't like you. It happens. So we need to think about kind of but what about this type thing? That's where my brain goes. So I guess I'm saying all of that because it's what you've brought is really intriguing, really valuable, could be truly amazing. I'm looking at the scorecard. I'm reading the scorecard as you're walking me through this, and I'm like, okay, how does this, what's the implementation of this in a land bank policy? And I don't know. So we need more, discussion and conversation, and frankly, talk among us to make sure people like me can understand that. How does that work? We're going to embed an equity scorecard into our land bank policy and make it even part of like a trucking process for getting us from A to Z. A, I found a lot I might want. Z, I'm enjoying my beautiful new home. You know, where does this play? And I just need more practical application for that. And I think you all can provide that to me. But off the top of my head, I can't identify it sitting here tonight. All that being said, sorry to ramble on, but you said a lot and it made me think a lot. I'm proposing to our committee, and Chair Davis, you probably have some thoughts on how to move forward. So I guess I'll leave that. And I will say, let me hear what you're thinking about moving us forward, but also in the context of the work we've done so far that spanned a couple of years.
Yeah, it's
It's
about
not
2
bad
years.
work.
Yeah.
And we didn't do it wrong. And those voices that came to those public engagement sessions were worth hearing. And they shared a lot of data with us that we feel is valuable about how to move this land bank forward from its current spot now. So we could adopt our policy with a commitment to continue to see how do we take an equity scorecard and make it real and tangible for everybody involved in this process. I really appreciated their remarks. And that is, I think, a little bit of a transformative way to do government. And that's okay too. So I feel like we can adopt policy as all the work that's been done so far, but doggone it, keep a commitment to you in the Northeast area to see how can we move this forward better and more equitably. And some of that I think is going to have real steps. And I think other parts of that is going to be philosophy, my opinion only. I'll stop. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Hill, did you have something to add? And then I'll kind of wrap this up.
Okay, I promise to be short. I just want 2 more comments. One young lady, I didn't write her name down, I apologize, mentioned that the application process to get land from the land bank was not extremely difficult, but everything else after that was trying to deal with all the different departments. So I think we need to figure out a different process or something around that. And I also want to commend Ms. Jefferson for all of her efforts and appreciate all the detailed information. And we have talked, so her and Rachel, just thank you again and your team for all of your work, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Being mindful of time, I'm going to kind of chart a way forward so that we can get some sort of a resolution, right, going forward. So I think for the sake of this conversation, what would be most appropriate is if we not take a vote on the land bank policy tonight. And the reason why is I do want to clear up some of the things that were said tonight so that we can provide context, particularly for the soil remediation issues. So you all mentioned Alyssa Marcy and Gunnar Hand. Well, Alyssa Marcy and Gunnar Hand were part of putting together the current land bank policy proposal before you, along with Wendy Green and with Judd. We actually spoke extensively on brownfield and had made the decision at that time to not necessarily use this particular policy to address the soil remediation, but to attack that separately, right? Because not every parcel of land that has soil issues is a land bank parcel, and not every land bank parcel has soil issues. And so there was a question of, should we included here, or does this live somewhere else? Obviously, Mrs. Marcy is not here to speak for herself, but I think what would be most appropriate is to have that conversation with our planning department so that they can guide us on what we are currently doing and then what road path we need to take on. The other thing I think we want to think about is staff. There are a lot of really, really good ideas that I have, and I think other commissioners have, the mayor has, whatever. But dealing with 22%, I think last time I heard, vacancy, with Judd being kind of a band of kind of two people within that office, there are real practical questions we will have to have on bandwidth of who's going to do that particular work. What is that workload like, and how is it sustainable? We are bleeding staff. We are bleeding talent right now. We just went revenue neutral, which means we are reducing our budget by $17 million. That also has an impact. I don't say that to devalue or say that everything that was presented wasn't or shouldn't be considered, but everything has to be considered within context, right? And so I think those are things for our committee to think about going forward and to have real honest conversations of, but who is going to do the work and what resources? There was questions and concerns about the level of maintenance of land bank parcels. We also discussed that, found out it would take about $2 million to maintain land bank parcels. And prior to going revenue neutral, it's about $300,000, which is allocated, right? So we're talking less than a quarter of adequate dollars to maintain land bank parcels, right? Money isn't growing on trees per se, so we have to figure out what do we do about those things. And with the yard extensions and with more permissive uses for land bank applications, I think we really tried to get there. So what I'm thinking for tonight is we'll go ahead and conclude. We'll hold for the policy. We'll have staff present on brownfield efforts, and then we will continue to have ongoing conversations about the scorecard, PLG, right, neighborhoods, quality of life plans, so that we are able to digest this and see where to go. Do I think all of my colleagues that we're all going to agree? Not necessarily, but I do want to be honoring of you all's time. Thank you. And I also want to give us adequate time to digest what has been presented. So with that, I want to thank you all. And committee, I'm just going to go ahead and make the executive session to remove the land bank policy off the agenda, so we don't even have to address that. That will be considered at another time. If there are no other items, or if no one has any other comments, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Adjourn.
Davis, second. Clerk, can we get the roll?
Roll call. Hill.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you all so much. Have a good night.